Good morning councillors, good morning to our staff, and good morning to everybody who's joining us via live stream. Welcome to this August meeting of the Sunshine Coast Council, our ordinary meeting, and welcome. I'd like to start by asking everybody to be upstanding and calling on Councillor David Law to acknowledge our traditional custodians.
On behalf of Council, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Sunshine Coast local government area, the Kabi peoples of the coastal plains and northern hinterland, and on whose traditional lands we gather today, and the Jinnaburra peoples of the southern hinterland. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to all First Nations peoples.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Please stay upstanding and I'll recite the opening prayer. The opening prayer for today comes from Pastor Peter Hewitt of the New Life Church at Woombye. Almighty God, we pray that you would grace us with your presence this morning. Please grant us your wisdom and discernment as we seek to create a safe and prosperous community. May the decisions we make today ultimately provide economic strength, social stability, and good governance for all who call the Sunshine Coast home, as well as those who visit us. We also pray that you would comfort those in our community who are feeling nervous and afraid in these uncertain times, and that we, along with all community leaders, would have the wisdom, strength and foresight to respond effectively to the pandemic that we are facing. We pray that you protect us from any outbreaks so that the Sunshine Coast can continue to enjoy the healthy and blessed lifestyle our region provides for us. We pray this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you, Pastor Peter. Please remain standing. I also wish to acknowledge condolence to Councillor Cox. I want to take this opportunity on your behalf, councillors, and indeed on behalf of our community, and to all here today, to express our deepest condolences to our colleague Councillor Peter Cox on the recent passing of his father. Christopher Leslie Cox was a hard-working, resourceful, loving and compassionate man. He was deeply devoted to his family and had a strong love for fishing and golf. A hospitable man that was always there for everyone, family, neighbours, colleagues and friends. Peter, please be aware that our thoughts are with yourself and your wife Tanya and your family at this very sad time, and we will pause for a moment to remember Peter's father. Thank you, councillors. Please be seated. We have no apologies for today. Would somebody move the receipt and confirmation of the minutes from the meeting of the 23rd of July, please? Councillor Dixon, thank you. Seconded Councillor Babarowski, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, I'd like to draw to your attention that on 21 May 2018, amendments to the Local Government Act 2009 came into force. These amendments include the new Division 5A, which provides new legislative arrangements for dealing with councillors' personal interests in local government matters. These arrangements will apply to how we manage such matters at today's meeting. So should you have a material personal interest, a conflict of interest or a perceived conflict of interest, please raise that before we deal with the item to which it relates. There is no mayoral minute. Can I have someone please move a suspension of standing orders to allow live streaming in the interests of safety and the health of the community? The Local Government Regulation 2012 has recently been amended in relation to the public's attendance at council meetings. This is to enable councils to comply with the National Public health directions related to COVID-19. Can someone move, please? Councillor Natoli, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Suarez, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, item 7 are presentations and councillor reports. I'm going to go first to Councillor David Law with regard to Homelessness Week recognition and the photographic exhibition Changing Perceptions. Thank you, Councillor Law.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. National Homelessness Week occurred earlier this month, and it happened from the 2nd to the 8th of August. The theme this year was Everybody Needs a Home. More than 120,000 people are homeless every night in Australia, with 785 people experiencing homelessness on the Sunshine Coast. The Nambour Community Centre have been holding community conversations since 2018, walking alongside people with a living experience of homelessness. These conversations this year resulted in a photographic exhibition, Challenging Perceptions on Homelessness. The programme was funded through our community grants, and it resulted in the exhibition that was displayed in C Square in Nambour during Homelessness Week. One part of the programme was to ask each person photographed one question. If you could tell the world one thing about yourself. And I'd just like to share with you a couple of those comments from the people who were photographed in the exhibition. Firstly, love, hope and faith. What else is there in this madness we call life? I'm honest. I recently came out of a lung tumour. Now I look at life differently. Just enjoy life. The exhibition in C Square during Homelessness Week attracted over 220 visitors. And I think it's perhaps relevant to share a couple of the comments from those visitors who came and saw the many other photographs, as well as the one that we can see today. So 2 of those comments. Firstly, shines a light and provides an insight that it can affect any one of us. No one is immune from falling on hard times. And some words of hope for all of us that we can perhaps follow up and take on. Having seen these people's photos makes it easier to say hi when I see them around. So thank you to Claire Letitia Reynolds for the stunning photographs, and to Anna Greenfield at the Nambour Community Centre for the vision and for holding those conversations over the last 2 years leading to the exhibition. The work is going to be going on display at the Koroy Butter Factory in the near future, and it will be finding other homes throughout the Sunshine Coast. The work to help is ongoing through the implementation of priority actions from the community strategy and from the mayoral roundtable on homelessness, such as the delivery of the housing crisis response that has supported 387 people without a home, and I'm sure we'll hear a little more about that later on today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Can I have someone second the presentation, please? Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. All those in favour of receipt? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. I want to go to the next presentation, which is also Councillor Law and is for the 2020 National Awards for Local Government Migrant Work Ready Program. Thank you, Councillor Law.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. The National Awards for Local Government. The Migrant Work Ready Program is the winner of the Multicultural Australia category of the 2020 National Awards for Local Government. Administered by the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Communications, and selected by an expert panel, the award highlights innovative, resourceful solutions implemented by local governments to make a difference in their communities. The programme has been acknowledged for excellence in service delivery and showcasing community solutions that directly respond to a community need, overcomes barriers and features new, advanced and creative thinking. Council's Multicultural Advisory Group has also provided advice leadership for the delivery of the programme, receiving and receiving the award aligns with the commencement of the new term of the group, which includes key members who have led the delivery of the programme. Recent migrants to the Sunshine Coast can face challenges in finding employment. They may experience challenges such as a lack of Australian work experience and references. They may have limited social networks and difficulties with English language. Their skills or qualifications may not be recognised, and they may not know how or where to apply for jobs. Through the programme, professional experts, community organisation and business owners clarify how to prepare for the local job market and improve the prospects to find employment. Guest speakers from a multicultural background also share their real-life success stories to inspire participants and build self-reliance. The programme involves 3 parts: 8 employment-ready workshops, a graduation and business networking event, and pathways to training, volunteering, work experience and mentoring opportunities. The programme is not delivered in a typical classroom format. The participants are taken on a transformational journey to be work-ready, focusing equally on developing practical skills and interpersonal strengths. In the words of a graduate from 2019, I would just share with you, today we understand the Australian work culture. We know how to write a great CV. We have practiced shaking hands and looking people in the eye and have learned how to make a great first and last impression. We understand the importance of networking, appreciate the power of listening to understand, not to respond. We have LinkedIn profiles. We've learned how to network, and we've developed great elevator pitches. The Migrant Work Ready programme has contributed so much to our lives professionally and personally. Now, we wish to pay it back by contributing to the Sunshine Coast business and society. Throughout 2018-19, the programme has helped 47 migrants become work-ready and prepared to add value to our local businesses. Over 10 graduates have found ongoing employment. For the third time, starting 27 new participants will commence the programme on Friday, the 11th of September. The success and continuation of the programme reflects a growing need of the local population. Building strong and resilient communities is a key outcome for the Sunshine Coast Community Strategy. When businesses employ a diverse workforce, it benefits business, its employees and customers through increased productivity, creativity, and a wider range of skills and improved cultural insights. So to the team from the Community Development, congratulations on achieving this national award for the Migrant Ready Work Programme. And I have a certificate to award to the staff involved.
Thanks, Councillor Law. I invite Kim Price and Liam Mayo to come forward to receive the certificate. And I'd just, in addition, add my own congratulations. Normally, this award would be presented in Canberra at the Australian Local Government National Assembly. Regrettably, due to COVID-19 and the impacts of it, that gathering isn't occurring. So my heartiest congratulations to our staff on bringing a wonderful reflection on the Sunshine Coast community with this work that's being done around the Migrant Work Ready program, which from my own personal experience in working with the people involved is a great program and very much appreciated by those who are taking advantage of the opportunity to become fully embedded Australian or Aussie citizens and workers. Well done. Round of applause. Thank you, Councillor Law. Can I have someone second that? Thank you, Councillor Cox. All those in favour of the receipt of that presentation? That's carried unanimously. And our third presentation, shared by Councillors Natoli and Hungerford, are the 2020 Government Design Awards. Who's speaking first? Councillor Hungerford, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it gives me great pleasure today to share with Councillor Natoli in recognising some of our staff under the Outstanding Organisation portfolio. In any organisation, our most important asset is our staff. And today we get to recognise some of our outstanding staff. Our creative designers in our communication branch have scooped a number of awards this year in 2 prestigious competitions. The 2020 Gov Design Awards are International Graphic Design and Marketing Awards, which celebrate design projects within the government, community and private sectors. Nominations are across space, objects, visual and experience design categories, accumulating in the Best Project, Best Transformation and Best Innovation Awards. Council's graphic design team was up against some very talented competition, including entries from Singapore, Sydney and Melbourne. The team's designs clearly stood out to the judges and they picked up 2 gold and 1 silver in the 2020 Gov Design Awards. Maria Howe took out gold in the graphic design publication category for her stunning work on the Horizon Festival 2019. Maria has been working on the Horizon Festival for the last 3 years and has taken the design to an entirely new level, creating branding and a suite of collateral. Now, Joseph Stevens was also awarded gold in the Marketing Brand Experience category for his work to launch Council's Adventure Sunshine Coast website and project, creating the concept and branding design, website design and large amount of collateral, including the environmentally friendly beeswax wraps, which are used to launch the community awareness program. And finally, Ashley Gromley won silver in the graphic design, corporate identity and branding category. For her beautiful branding, created the Blue Heart Sunshine Coast project, a tripartite agreement between Council, Unity Water and the Department of Environment and Science. This clever design includes the elements which symbolise the Indigenous story of our land. We see the external shape of the Blue Heart, the significant bird species in the area, Mount Nindari and Mount Coolum, our native plant sedge, future growth and partnership opportunities and the black swan's beak. A local bird which also represents Marici from the Kabi Kabi coastal story. You will also see the inner heart which represents Marici's broken heart. Her tears flow between Mount Nindari and Mount Coolum towards the Marici River mouth at the base. This clever design also includes the creek systems which flow into the Marici River. I'd like us to congratulate our 3 magnificent staff for winning 2 gold and a silver at the Gov20 Awards this year, and Councillor Natoli has further awards that these magnificent people also achieved.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hungerford. It's a great honour to be able to recognise our staff and, in particular, those that do outstanding work. And these 3 designers also pick up 1 gold and 2 silver at the 2020 Brisbane Design Awards, which are open to all designers, not just local government, and are a collection of the best of design in the Brisbane design market. So these are very hotly contested awards. Ashley Gromley was again recognised for her work on the Blue Heart Sunshine Coast project, this time being awarded gold in the Marketing, Branding Experience category. And the judges said, the Blue Heart project helps people understand the Sunshine Coast environment and ecology, a very sensitive space. Those coastal ecosystems are very delicate and need to be dealt with respect. The signage and display suite connects with the community and helps get the communication across. Congratulations, Ash, on both of your awards and your beautiful work on the Blue Heart project. It was the first and second place for the team in the Marketing Brand Experience category, with Joe Stevenson taking out silver for Adventure Sunshine Coast. The judges described the work as well-executed project, bringing this project to life and encouraging people to enjoy and visit the Sunshine Coast and all it has to offer. And finally, Maria Howe has also been awarded a silver for the Horizon Festival in the Graphic Design Publication category. The judges said the Horizon Festival is a festival that is meant to excite the imagination of people and encourage the community to head to the Sunshine Coast. When we were young, we would think of the Sunshine Coast as a place that you would put on sunscreen, go out to the beach and go out surfing. Not somewhere where you would go for culture or art, and it has been beautifully expressed here. In the 2019 Horizon Festival, it attracted more than 31,000 attendances to the 10-day event, engaging 665 artists and presenters, of which 419 were locally based. The festival attributed $2.3 million in economic benefit to the local economy. So congratulations to all three designers on their awards and consistently inspiring design work that showcases council and to our local community that they are able to compete not just on the national but also international stage. I had the opportunity to meet these three designers before the council meeting, and it's just great to have the opportunity to recognise their amazing work. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor. So to Joe, Maria and Aisling, congratulations and a hearty round of applause. Thank you. Councillors, I'd also like just for a moment to focus on the piece of art that we have here at today's meeting. During this COVID-19 period, we've been acknowledging and recognising the creative community, the creative industries of the Sunshine Coast, and in particular the creative talent. And at each meeting we've sought to exhibit a piece of art. This piece today is called A Windy Day, and it was circa 1960, a watercolour on paper that was gifted to council by a private donor as part of the Sunshine Coast Art Collection. Local artist, Joy Rogenkamp, who was originally born in Roma in 1928, and Joy was an exemplary artist who lived in this region for extended periods of time. Her favourite subjects were the late 50s onwards. Going to be a few of us here who'd remember that. Were children and beach scenes, and what better way than to amplify the benefits of the Sunshine Coast. So I want to again recognise Joy for this great contribution, but recognise all of our creative industries and the challenging times we're going through as we all seek to work together to improve our outcomes. So again, I'd encourage people to visit our Caloundra Regional Gallery as part of the gallery's 20th anniversary celebration. Make the most of that opportunity. My apologies, you're dead right. I need someone to, well, I assume Councillor Natoli will move it and Councillor Hungerford will second. Sorry, Councillor.
If I can just take the opportunity, Mr Mayor, I did know Joy Rogenkamp personally. Unfortunately, she's passed away. She lived up in Mullaney. She's an amazing watercolourist, probably one of the best in Australia that never got the recognition that she deserved. And I was very fortunate to meet her husband. They had obviously separated. I had no idea the connection. And he asked me to officially open his first exhibition. He gave up his career so that Joy could become an artist. And it was just a pleasure to have that connection and understanding between the two.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Sorry, I didn't get a vote on the third presentation. So moved by Councillor Hungerford, seconded by Councillor Natoli. All those in favour of receipt of that item? You right there, Councillor Johnston? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That's fine. Rightio, councillors, we'll go straight into our reports. 8.1 is the quarterly progress report, and I'll hand over to Acting CEO, Mr Warren Bunker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have great pleasure in presenting today the quarterly progress report Q4 for the period between the 1st of April and the 30th of June 2019 to 2020. Much like the rest of the world, the Sunshine Coast spent Q4 in uncharted territory as we monitored and responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. Throughout this time, Council continued to build and evolve and provide supporting measures and remain focused on its provision of services to the community at large and ensuring that the health and wellbeing of our community and our employees were focused on. We showed great agility in responding to our changing environment by applying new innovative solutions and services, implementing new operating procedures and transforming some of our educational programs, such as the innovative approach to click and collect for our library services, and moving the Horizon Festival online was extremely well received. We also saw 2 tranches 2 and 3 of Council's economic stimulus package were released and included in the economic resurgence plan to try and fast-track our economy over the next 12 to 18 months. We also saw 25 projects which were delivered earlier than scheduled as we brought them forward as part of the $3.4 million capital projects to keep our residents in jobs and money flowing through the economy. So it's important to make sure we brought forward some projects in this quarter. Also, our new council commenced in April and wasted no time in immersing themselves in the role, undertaking over 47 workshops, 10 budget sessions, and throughout this period were able to bring forward the budget in June as expected in relation to it. And it focused on many of the issues to deal with the pandemic going forward. In amongst all these challenges we faced, Council still able to deliver 74% of its operational plan and the majority of its capital works program, a remarkable feat under these circumstances. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both the residents and our staff for adhering to the public health restrictions, the kindness they showed to their fellow neighbours, and their tireless work as volunteers and community organisations over this period. Council and the community have shown that through solidarity and immense resilience and ability to adapt and be flexible during these challenging times, we were able to move through this period in a remarkable exercise. We will continue to monitor and respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and remain agile and forge our way forwards to ensuring that we have our vision of being Australia's most sustainable region, healthy, smart, creative. So it's much pleasure that I present this report to you today, and I'd now like to hand over to the Outstanding Organisation Portfolio Councillor, Councillor Hungerford, to outline some of the achievements. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Bunker.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll cover some of the points relating to the outstanding organisation, as there are other points in here that other portfolios may like to cover. One of the most important things we're doing at the moment is helping our community through the pandemic and keeping, most importantly, our local businesses going. So with that, 73 million of Council's purchasing spend went to local businesses. This represents 72% of Council's total available purchasing spend for the quarter, supporting our local community. Council's procurement policy has been revised to increase its emphasis on locally based suppliers. This will help to keep residents employed and money circulating through the region's economy. Council injected up to $15 million per month earlier into our local economy by expediting the payments to local contractors within 7 days, usually it's 30 days. Council did not charge interest on outstanding rates. Where people have got a payment program with us and are working with us, we want to help them. And we did not pursue outstanding rates during this period. The 2021 budget, adopted in June, includes a financial relief for the general ratepayers through the COVID-19 rebate. There is no increase in the environment, transport or heritage levies, meaning most ratepayers on the minimum general rate will pay the same as last year. We are seeing green shoots with the people being able to holiday within the state. Our caravan parks have started taking good bookings. So hopefully we keep that momentum going into the new into this financial year. And I think in 2021 will be a very important year for us as far as our budgeting goes. But the commitment here is to this community and helping us get through this difficult time.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Any other speakers, any other policy, portfolio councillors wish to? Councillor Suarez, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I'd also like to thank the Acting CEO for steering the ship through the last quarter. Personally, I'd like to thank him for his assistance in learning the ropes in this new role, while simultaneously navigating through these challenging times. It's been another impressive quarter as our organisation and community seek to realise this important organisational goal of a healthy environment. I'd like to recognise that these initiatives are delivered by different branches from across the organisation, which reinforces that the healthy environment goal is truly an organisational goal. I'd like to highlight just a few of these achievements for you. Russell Family Park. Our Parks and Gardens branch, in partnership with Project Delivery and Design and Placemaking Services, delivered the last phase of the Russell Family Park in Montville, which provided for a significant terraced car parking facility, stormwater management infrastructure, extensive landscaping and a major playground upgrade. With 75,000 square metres of recreational park and green open space, the park creates a place which actively connects us to our environment and provides the opportunity to explore the outdoors. Designed to attract families, the park is home to an inviting, cone-structured playground that stands just under 10 metres high, with butterflies eclipsing the tip of the equipment. The Dawn Chorus. Our Environmental Operations branch reached out across the world and engaged in an exciting initiative to celebrate International Dawn Chorus Day in May 2020, which saw the dawn soundscape of Mary Cairncross Scenic Reserve being broadcast live around the world through the Revel 2020 International Chorus Day. Starting just before daybreak in the United Kingdom, the Revel broadcast picked up the live microphone feeds from natural areas around the world. More than 6,000 people from various countries tuned in to listen to different bird species greet the day as the sun rose over Mary Cairncross. The Changemaker Challenge series. Our Environment and Sustainability branch partnered with business leaders throughout the community to create a powerful online conversation series. The series took place in June and challenged businesses to shift their habits to a circular economy approach. The series intended to embed innovative sustainability practices, support business opportunities and increase profit for purpose. Sustainable living is core to Council's environment and livability strategy, and the Changemaker Challenge series is one of the many projects and initiatives helping to achieve a healthy environment and livable Sunshine Coast. The Golden Beach Stormwater Trial. Our Transport and Infrastructure branch, in partnership with the Parks and Gardens branch, progressed to an innovative project at Golden Beach as the first suburb on the Sunshine Coast to trial a functional, cost-effective and sustainable way to water street trees. The trial will see a range of methods implemented to collect and capture stormwater runoff from our roads and curbs, which will then be redirected to the roots of the trees. Community. Councillors, obviously this is only a small window into the efforts of the organisation in delivering on our healthy environmental goal. There are far too many good examples to speak to this morning. However, I can't let the opportunity pass without recognising and congratulating our volunteers in returning to bush care volunteer activities, who in COVID-restricted times still managed to remove 18 wheelie bins of weeds and invested 139 hours of their time in doing so. Also, councillors, I'd like to recognise the efforts of over 1,000 private landholders who participate in our Land for Wildlife program in removing weeds and caring for nearly 9,000 hectares of natural environment found on private lands. I know our Environmental Operations branch think themselves fortunate to be working with such motivated members of our community. So thank you to all of the departments and the staff.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Go to Councillor Dixon.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, and can I just first start by acknowledging Mr Warren Bunker. Warren is our acting Chief Executive Officer who's, in my opinion, steered us through some very challenging times and proven some great leadership with our executive leadership team and all of the staff here in this room today. I think everyone's done a fantastic job, and the feedback I'm getting from residents is that council is not only delivering its core services but improving, which under these circumstances is something that I didn't expect. From a service excellence point of view, we're talking about stats and figures from April to June, and I've written some points down here today, so I will touch on some of those stats, Mr Mayor. If we talk about service excellence, we've had nearly 58,000 customers assisted through our development and customer service contact points. So if you think about it, people going into counters, ringing up, doing web chats, video calls, nearly 58,000 interactions with ratepayers is absolutely huge, and I'm glad that some of those calls aren't coming through my office and are being dealt with by the organisation. That's a lot of calls for any council. Council's issued nearly 2,700 building approvals with a construction value of nearly $370 million. We've also decided 3,500 building and plumbing applications, and if you think about it, I had a recent example out at Palmview and Harmony where I was told by the developer pre-COVID they were doing 7 to 9 lot sales a week, which I thought was pretty good. It's a lot of land sales. Recently, when I talked to Avid, they were saying they were selling up to 70 plus land parcels per week with state and federal interventions through financial assistance and also access to your super. So a lot of people are being able to buy their first home, younger people out there. And if you think about Harmony and Palmview, an example, up to 7,500 people will live there, and there are a lot of lots for sale. So we've actually just welcomed our 1,000th family out to Harmony. So it's growing, and you can see that through the sales figures out there. But really what that reflects to council is that we've got to keep up with those requests for approvals and those plumbing certificates as well, because without them you can't build your house, you can't open it, and you can't live there. But very, very important. Talking about checking in with the industry, because we haven't been able to get a lot of people in the door. You think about it, with COVID, the doors aren't open and we've got social distancing. I know the development services staff have actually been proactively ringing up consultants, the industry, checking in with them, organising video calls to see how they're doing, if we can improve our levels of service. And on that, I think we're meeting well over 83% of our statutory timeframe. So if someone's putting an application in, over or close to 83% of our applications are being dealt with within time. And if you think about that, a lot of our staff have been working from home, some in the office. We've still managed to deliver those expectations of the industry. And I say that without any concern, because the industry aren't telling me that there are any issues. We're hearing that council staff are doing a great job in that area. Talking customer service again, now we've actually found that our chat hours, so we think about people who interact online, and I don't know if many people use our online services, but they're great. We've actually seen an increase of over 48% in those online services. Last week I got to do my first tour for a long time in the customer service area. Actually got to walk downstairs in the Caloundra building and talk with Mitch Wilson and the customer service team and actually have a walk around. I know Councillor Winston has done that in the last month, and it's fantastic to see the team. They've got a couple of people on the front counter, they've got a room full of people taking calls and working on resident inquiries, but also a new area that I really wasn't aware of, and that's our digital realm. So we've actually got dedicated officers who are there speaking with people online, letting them know how long it's going to take to answer their inquiry. More and more people are moving to that digital realm where they can be at work, they can be chatting on their computer to staff and getting answers on their rates questions or about their bins or getting things fixed like potholes and trees. Great to see that, and I didn't even realise we had such a high usage of that service. Parking patrols, when COVID hit, we saw our parking officers essentially walk off the job in one respect. They actually took their hands off and went, you know what, we're backing off our patrols, and we didn't actively step those up until the end of May and early June. In my view, council staff are acting on a complaint basis now. If we get complaints, we'll act on them. If we've got hotspots with safety issues, we'll go to them. But if you look around the region, and I don't know about some of my colleagues, but I'm not getting the level of calls or complaints from people. They're not ringing up saying that I got a ticket for doing this or a ticket for doing that. I find that the council's approach is more compassionate and understanding now. We're providing warnings, we're educating people, we're not going in with a heavy stick and issuing fines. And people are really appreciating that. Mr Mayor, I'm not sure if I need an extension yet or if I can keep going.
I think you've probably requested one at an appropriate time. Can I have someone move an extension? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Councillor Babarowski. All those in favour? Please carry on, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Lastly, on to waste, if I can talk about waste. And whilst not within the quarter, we probably realised we had some pretty big issues in the last fortnight blow up around our waste collection services. We had some mechanical issues with our fleet, and not only did the staff work longer hours, but they were picking up those bins in a way that was not disrupting the community. I don't know how many emails or calls other councillors got on it, but I only got praise from my community. They actually got the information from council. The comms team did a fantastic job. The newspaper reported it well. Our waste branch were on it. I know Mr John Hogg was working late into the night to fix the issues. This is a core service of council. You know, when you can actually get out there and set an extremely high service level around waste, which we do, people are happy to back us, and that should be evidence for this council. We deliver a fantastic waste service, and we get our residents on board. Our community backed that service because it works well, and they were willing to give us a bit of leeway when that happened. They supported us. They worked with us to get their bins in and out on the right days and the right times. And from my point of view, the community got involved. They shared it. They educated each other. And it might sound like a small thing, Mr Mayor, but when you've got a great business unit and a service unit like that, we can't forget about taking the good things from that. They're a fantastic team, and I think there's a lot of other teams in council that could learn from the way that the Waste Branch have dealt with a situation that could have otherwise been very, very dangerous for council in terms of missing services and community expectation. The state government were really good to us recently. We got a grant to have 2 new officers investigate illegal dumping. Illegal dumping is a huge issue, not just on the Sunshine Coast, but in Queensland and if not Australia. In my view, a lot of people are quite lazy, just dragging their mattresses and fridges out and just chucking them in the bush because they really don't care. We hear the excuse that they don't have a ute or a trailer to do it, but they always find their way to take it out of the house and dump it in the national park, which is a lot of effort. We're trying to actually encourage people to do the right thing. Many of our services at our waste facilities are free. If people go to council's website, they can see what is free and what we can actually recycle. With the state government grant, we've got officers now who are actually following up on this illegal dumping. We're putting more covert cameras out to catch people in illegal dumping spots around national parks and roads that people don't often drive down. We're trying to find those people, and we're encouraging residents, if you see illegal dumping or someone doing that, let us know, give us a registration. We will be following up, and we've got dedicated staff to do that. In terms of closing off on waste, Mr Mayor, just a few interesting stats here that I got from Mr Rupre. In this quarter, we've had 70,000 tonnes of waste come through our facility. If you think about it, a lot of people home from work, working from home. We saw a 75% increase at our 3 major transfer stations and tips here on the Sunshine Coast. A lot of people cleaning up their homes, going to the tip. I remember going to the Resource Recovery Centre at Budrum myself, and there was a line-up all the way down Elizabeth Daniels Drive back out onto Mooloolaba Budrum Road. Absolutely huge. Never seen the waste facility so busy, but so many people looking to get into the waste facility and clean up around their home. Of that 70,000 tonnes of waste, we actually recovered about 30,000 tonnes of that, and that means we have achieved about a 40% diversion rate, and mainly that was from crushed concrete, which came through the facility. Mr Mayor, there's a lot I can talk on, and I know I've spoken a lot here today, but I'd actually like to invite, with your indulgence, Mr James Rupre to speak as our Director for, or Group Executive of Customer Service and Planning Services. If Mr Rupre would like to get up and touch on some of those core business unit things that he's achieved, I think it would be great to hear from our Group Executive. And again, I just thank you for the opportunity. I'm learning a lot in service excellence, and I'm just so proud of the team and the good work and the interaction we're having with the Sunshine Coast ratepayers. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Mr Rupre, you might come forward to the lectern, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Dixon, for some great acknowledgement across not just my branch but the whole of council and what we've achieved for service excellence. You probably haven't left me a lot to touch on, but I think just some key stats. Councillor, you touched on the customer service levels over the last quarter of the last financial year, and in the midst of a global pandemic, having to shift the way in which we both interact with our customers and the way in which we dealt with the flexibility that was needed to service the community. Just some quick stats. 90% of customers who were pushed into using more digital means such as chat and email have come back to us through surveys and said that they'll continue to do so. Almost 50% of the phone users that we had migrate to the chat function have said that they have expressed that they will continue to use that function. Of customers that normally interact via email, 72% have expressed that they'll remain on that channel, and 25% will move to chat as a more flexible and timely option to get the information they need. So some really good learnings have come out of what was otherwise a very difficult situation in helping council drive what will be the next generation of contact centres and delivery of service directly to the community. Look, other than that, I think across the group, the input into the business relief and economic resurgence packages that council had delivered to directly assist the community was immense. We delivered the amnesty on regulatory parking and temporarily switching off meters, as you touched on. A total of 2,307 licences and temporary use permits, which were partially or fully refunded to a value of $405,000. So money that went directly back to businesses and residents in the midst of the pandemic, and introduction of staged payments for infrastructure fees for development to allow developers and project leaders to utilise more capital up front to secure bank funding and loans. So just a couple of stats that may sort of sit at the bottom or behind the scenes, but certainly exemplify the achievements and our ongoing drive for delivering service excellence. So thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Rupre. Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Just a few words on our economic development portfolio, which I share with fellow councillor there, Jason O'Prey. I took the liberty just the last couple of weeks to contact a couple of the businesses that deal with council on a regular basis. And I think just highlighting a couple of these comments from these businesses. First of all, last week we saw the turning of the site of City Hall, which was an exciting part of the next stage for council. And obviously McNabb were awarded that contract for City Hall. Now, the CEO is Michael McNabb. They've started their company in Toowoomba in 1996. They deal with projects anywhere from $1 million to $80 million. They have offices in Brisbane, Gold Coast, and now on the Sunshine Coast here. And with their staff of 65, they will increase to over 100 staff members once that project kicks off. And obviously the potential local procurement with over 74% now, which we've taken on board. The impact for our local subcontractors is another good shot in the arm for our local economy. Michael's words, council have shown smart decision in these future investments on the Sunshine Coast. He holidayed here on the Sunshine Coast as a child, and obviously he's committed here on the coast here for the next 20 years. So a great outcome for that. Another gentleman I spoke to is Dominic Carmine from Murphy Builders. Murphy Builders have, over the last 8 years, completed over 50 projects for the Sunshine Coast Council, and the latest one being the Mooloolaba Holiday Park and the Boardwalk. His words, a great repeat client, and it's all about keeping locals employed. And David Tragus from Bones Plumbing as a preferred supplier through council. He's actually been fortunate enough to increase his workforce now from 6 to 20 employees over the last 6 years. So David, obviously one of the benefits that came out is the increased paying off the quick schemes, the payment schemes within 14 days, which has been a huge plus for his workers as well, where he's been trying to chase up work as well for his local economy, as his concerns are for his own employees. As we're aware, our response to COVID-19, we've kicked off with regular online meetings with our chambers, industry and ambassadors to inform the development of over 40 different policy decisions we've made since March 2020. We've had extensive engagement with our local business community directly through local chambers of commerce, our industry groups, and also through our special COVID-19, we've done a business publication distributed to over 60,000 locations. And also there's a flip book that's been shared with more than 10,000 people. Our second Economic Resurgence Task Force meeting was just last week, which was chaired by Councillor Jason O'Prey, and that involved the invitee of the President of the Maroochy Chamber of Commerce, which is Brendan Bathersby, for his informative views on what we're looking forward and what we need to do as a community and their concerns in their local community there with the commerce. One of our group's commitments from the task force was obviously to create an online talent board to help locals secure better job opportunities and showcase our local successful businesses across our different media platforms. And that is to help inspire our business confidence, because we need business confidence at the moment. And these are good news stories that need to get out there in the local community to show that we are open for business and we're going to continue to drive our market. One of our task force members is Chris Carver, which he owns NTAG. Now, NTAG is also in the process now of delivering Australia's first virtual hospital through his digital health business. Now, he's also in discussions with SCAEP, the Sunshine Coast University Hospital, about this innovative model, and it's an amazing addition to his product. And also, just to touch on that, Chris Carver's business, NTAG, has just received being a finalist in the ARN Innovation Awards for Digital Transformation. And one other thing, we have strong interest as well from other companies willing to connect to our subsea cable. We've had Amazon Web Services signed up to provide digital skills and training for our region, and also we've had a cyber security innovation node that was established in June, which is to help promote that cyber security here on the Sunshine Coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. In regard to a strong community, I'd like to invite our Group Executive, Mr Greg Laverty, to provide us with a comment on the previous quarter.
Thank you. Mr Laverty.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think with all the uncertainty around COVID, the establishment of the Community Strategy Leadership Group was quite timely. The group includes community leaders across various levels of government, community organisations, the private and education sectors, and includes Councillor Law as the portfolio councillor. So the group is responsible for the delivery of Council's community strategy, the action plan, and reporting back against progress. One of the key methods within the community strategy is our community grants program, and during the quarter there was more than $1.1 million allocated to 275 community groups at a time that they certainly needed it. And particularly one of the components of that community grants program is the emergency grants, and they were utilised during that period for access for some of those community groups that needed funds very quickly. In the creative area, the Refinery 2020 was reformatted for a digital delivery mechanism. There was an online boot camp with 30 participants in it. From there were 13 selected to participate in an 8-week online program, culminating in a showcase of each of those participants. There were a range of other key digital initiatives, including the revamp of the Horizon Festival, the National Reconciliation Week, the library services, which saw more than 155,000 downloads during that quarter. And then through the period as well, we had the launch of Council's health and wellbeing program, LIFT, online, that saw 3,000 members of our community sign up for that program. There's already been quite a bit said about the economic resurgence program packages, Amazon. And while it's pretty quiet out there at the moment, the Sunshine Coast Airport, the new runway, is certainly a long-term project, and the community will benefit that for a long period of time. And Mr Mayor, I've left the best for last, and working as one team is one of Council's organisational values, and certainly the homelessness hub at Sunshine Coast Stadium was an example of the broader community working together as one team to deliver some significant outcomes. So the cooperation of more than a dozen organisations, plus plenty of volunteers, saw people in need on the Sunshine Coast have access to housing, health, clothing and food services. The services were delivered at Sunshine Coast Stadium with accommodation at the Sports Hub and the Sunshine Coast Recreation Centre at Curramundi. More than 300 people received services through the Homelessness Hub, and 197 people received temporary accommodation through that quarter. Importantly, 97 of those people have subsequently found permanent accommodation. So, Mr Mayor, considering the considerable uncertainty that each of those organisations that were involved, the state government departments that were involved, each of the individuals that had to deal with the impacts of COVID, the fact that they all come together and ensured that some of the most vulnerable people on our coast were not forgotten was a fantastic outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Laverty. Any further speakers? Okay. I'll ask for someone to move that report, please. Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Seconded Councillor Suarez. Anything further needs to be said? No. We'll put Councillor Johnston. No, I'm happy for you to speak now.
Mr Mayor, fellow councillors, leadership team and staff. It's a great pleasure for me to stand as a portfolio councillor for service excellence and speak about certain areas, particularly in relation to built infrastructure. In regard to asset management, we've introduced a confirm process which, when implemented fully, has the majority of council's operational areas for the first time, and we now have a one-stop shop for the management, maintenance and valuation of our asset base. So we've actually got 340,000 assets valued at some $5.4 billion. We have a one asset works prioritisation and scheduling system and a one asset condition assessment system. In relation to parks, it's been a busy period during the winter maintenance period for the last quarter. We've mulched Council Street parks and trees, landscaped with their own tub grindings. This practice not only prevents weed growth but increases bacterial and fungal action, increases the worm production and soils water retention, as mentioned by Councillor Suarez. These practicalities provide more resilient, sustainable landscape, and I'm looking forward to going to the nursery to see the work that they do in the nursery. Since January 2000, Parks and Gardens have ground some 3,597 cubic metres of green waste. That's 1,350 in the fourth quarter. We've collected over 2,000 cubic metres of chip mulch, and from internal and external contractors across Wisers and Clounder depots, and we've spread 2,800 cubic metres of mulch into garden beds and around the streets. And I think anybody who travels the streets as much as some of us do would realise that that is the case. In relation to disaster management, the Get Ready Schools competition winner was announced, St Joseph's School in Nambour. The Year 5 primary school students were awarded with their prizes at a school assembly, attended by the disaster management team and our head of the division, Tom Jamieson. They're working with a promotions company to develop an advertisement that will be shown on television and movies. The disaster management team has been coordinating activities in response to Queensland Health and District disaster, the COVID isolation points for travellers requiring to isolate after crossing the New South Wales border. In relation to transport, the Local Government Infrastructure Plan, LGIP, Capital Works. The final financial year quarter saw the culmination of the largest annual investment in growth projects for the Sunshine Coast to date. Around $45 million was invested in transport, road and active, in stormwater and public parks and land for community facilities over the 2019-20 financial year. Funding from these investments came from developers' infrastructure charges, 70%, and general revenue, 30%. This recognises the investment necessary to match increased demand on the Sunshine Coast. The Ride Score Active Schools program, totaled $530,000, was funded by federal, state government agencies, Stockland and Council, and is aimed at improving school children active participation in riding to school. We delivered $3.2 million worth of projects with the completion of upgrading and sealing of 1.7 kilometres of the unsealed road network, and we continue a 2 kilometre project under construction and progressed detailed design on other projects in the future years. We completed 53 bus stop upgrades to be disability compliant, and 2.2 kilometres of stormwater culverts were relined and 70 catch pits and end structures were upgraded, total cost of $2.25 million. In relation to civil asset management, the civil asset management team projects and services delivered by the civil asset management team during the last quarter included $7 million in civil asset construction, quarry products totalling 51,500 tonnes.
Councillor, do you need an extension?
Yes, just for a minute.
Please, someone move. Councillor Dixon, seconded Councillor Hungerford. All those in favour?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Carry on.
Maintenance services are valued at $6.4 million and delivery of 1.1 kilometre of road resurfacing and rehabilitation valued at $4.5 million. CAM implemented the Confirm Asset Management Information Systems I mentioned before, and the completed condition surveys for Council's road network, which determined the replacement value of $1.3 billion. We continue to implement environmental risk management to align with Council's corporate plan to mitigate the effects of climate change, etc. And it was my pleasure a couple of weeks ago to go to the opening, we called it an opening, it was actually an unofficial opening, of McGilchrist Road upgrade at the back of Udlow. And the work that, I have to say that the work that our council team has done on that project is fantastic. And the care for the environmental issues that are of particular importance in that area are very impressive. And I'd like to congratulate everybody who works in the built infrastructure area, and particularly the leaders in that area, because they are extremely capable. They deliver a high quality product, and the community, I think, is as happy as it has been for a long time in relation to the general services that are being delivered. It's no accident that the leadership from that team is flowing down through the workforce, and the workers are really happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. No further speakers? Okay, so we've moved Councillor Hungerford, seconded Councillor Suarez. All those in favour of the report from the CEO? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move into item 8.2, which is the July 2020 Financial Performance Report, and I invite Isaac Pickersgill to give us a presentation. Thank you, Isaac.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, Council and Council Executive Staff. I'm here today to present the Financial Performance Report for July 2020. Council, at the end of July 2020, the operating result of $136.3 million is favourable to budget by $4.5 million. Favourable variance consists of revenue above budget of $776,000, as well as expenses below budget of $3.7 million. Council's revenue for July is tracking a budget, with the rates run producing $159 million. The relaxation of social distancing regulations has allowed Council's holiday parks to open earlier than anticipated, providing additional funds to the expected budget for July. Council also received additional funds for biodiversity offset works, which will be expended over the coming years. Council's capital works program has progressed 8% of budget, with a total expenditure of $20 million. Projects within the transportation, building and coastal canal programs have continued into the new financial year, bringing the core program to $8 million. The Sunshine Coast Airport expansion project has also progressed 16% of budget and is scheduled to be finalised later this year. Lastly, Council, this report also includes a list of projects for endorsement under Appendix A. Budget for these projects have been provided under the Minor Capital Works program, and once endorsed by the Council will commence. A more complete list of projects will be provided under the Minor Capital Works program at the September ordinary meeting through the Budget Review 1 report. The recommendation today is for Council to receive and note the report titled July 2020 Financial Performance Report, as well as endorse the Minor Capital Works Program Appendix A.
Okay, someone like to move? Councillor Hungerford. Seconded, Councillor Johnston. Would you like to open, Councillor Hungerford?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and noting it's only the first month of the financial year, so most of the projects are being started and expenditures are only light because of only commencing projects. But the highlights has been covered here, quite a few of them. The important ones are Council has a positive operating result of $136 million. As of July, 176.5 million operating revenue has been achieved. Net rates and utilities charges is 159.5 million. Fees and charges. The relaxation of social distancing regulations has allowed Council's holiday parks to open earlier than anticipated, and that's a positive for us. I hope this continues. This has provided additional revenue over the reduced budget. Other revenue achieved for Council's resource recovery centres is higher than budget by $63,000. Also, Council has achieved additional funds for biodiversity offset works valued at $412,000. Our operating expenditure at July was $31.1 million, which is $3.8 million or 10.8 less than the current budget amount of $34.9 million. Being the start of the financial year and commencement of projects, that's quite normal. July, $20 million of Council's $242 million capital works program is financially expended. The core capital program has progressed 4.6% of budget and actual spend of $8.2 million. And the Sunshine Coast Airport runway has progressed 16.2% of the annual budget. Our investment parameters remain within the guidelines established by the investment policy. Cash, excluding the trust fund, with an average interest rate of 1.68%, being 1.1% above the benchmark, which is an excellent result in this current financial climate. So, Mr Mayor, it's early in the financial year, but we're off to a very healthy start as we build on into the financial year. So I commend this report to the councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just if I could suggest to the staff that next time that we have the financial report, that with the cash flow and balance sheet, if we could have a summary attached, like most of the other slides have a summary of what the current situation is, because if anyone was to read those, in particular, when you have a look at the debt and also the net cash, you would have a lot of questions that you probably, as somebody who would look at this for the first time, not actually understand that. I think it would be good for some type of summary just to explain the situation.
Mr CEO.
Through Mr Mayor. Yeah, obviously with each of these, as we move into this new financial year, it's important that we have the documentation that you're able to read and work through. So we'll continue to evolve and change it to make sure it does highlight those. As you said, some of those elements are better needed. It's not just the graph, it needs to have the explanatory note to explain exactly what the components are. So we'll deal with that.
Thank you. No further speakers. No need to close, Councillor. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Councillors, we move to item 8.3, which is the Kawana Water Structure Plan amendments. And before I invite the staff, I wish to inform you that under section 175E, in brackets 2 of the Local Government Act 2009, I may have a perceived conflict of interest in the matters that are the subject of the agenda item 8.3. on the basis that one of the directors of the Sunshine Coast Vitality Private Limited, which owns the Vitality Village building, is Mr Ken Reid, and I've previously received the following electoral donations from entities that either are or were associated with Mr Reid. $2,000 from RCQ Constructions on 2nd of March 2012, $2,000 from HMR Projects on the 11th February 2016, $3,000 from Reid Property Group on the 15th of February 2016, and $2,000 from Reid Property Group on the 15th of February 2016. I've decided, therefore, out of an abundance of caution, that I will withdraw from the chamber and not participate in the deliberation and vote on agenda item 8.3, and I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to step up and take the chair.
Well, good morning, councillors. I'd like to acknowledge the Mayor's declaration and draw your attention to the next item of business, which is 8.3, Kawana Water Structure Plan Amendments, and invite Stefan Martin to give us the presentation, supported by Officers Sean Phillips and Patricia Jensen. Thank you. Stefan.
Good morning, councillors. Through you, Mr Chair. This report relates to proposed amendments to the Kawana Waters Structure Plan to facilitate a number of development proposals in Batinia. Next slide, please. So just before I get to the amendments, the Kawana Waters is a master plan development that has a history that dates right back to the 1960s. It was originally a development lease that covered the whole area from Point Cartwright down to Curramundi Creek, and it's been progressively developed since then. In the mid-90s, Council negotiated an infrastructure agreement with the master developer and the state government to improve the development outcomes from the development lease, and that started a process called Development Control Plan Number 1 and the Kawana Waters Development Agreement. It was established at the time of the 1996 Caloundra Planning Scheme, and so all the terminology and some of the processes embedded in the master planning system are based on the 1996 Caloundra Planning Scheme. And on that basis, the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme 2014 doesn't apply to this area. The area covered by the Development Control Plan Number 1 is illustrated on the map on the screen. Next slide, please. So under Development Control Plan Number 1, there is a master planning process which the master developer has to complete before each area can be developed. The Development Control Plan itself is the strategic plan for the whole of Kawana Waters and forms part of the planning scheme. The structure plan is the highest level of master plan. It covers the whole of Kawana Waters and broadly sets out the uses and yields for each area. Below that, you have detailed planning area plans which focus in on specific areas, for example, the town centre or Boccarina Beach. And then below that, you have site-specific site development plans. And finally, you have a design plan application, which is akin to a reconfiguration of a lot application to actually freehold land out of a development lease and create it as a development lot. So the state is actually the final decision-making authority for most of these levels of master plan, and council is required to make a recommendation to the state. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this report deals with proposed amendments to retrospectively fix up some issues in the Kawana Water Structure Plan. It deals with a number of development proposals, all of which have already been approved by both council and the state government. However, the state have required that the structure plan be amended to recognise these uses. We understand that the reason the state required this is because they want to make sure the traffic modelling that's referenced in the state's conditions that apply to the structure plan are an accurate representation of what's happening on the ground. So the amendments cover 4 different development proposals, one of which is the night quarter, which is an interim use of the currently vacant Stage 2 part of Batinia Shopping Centre. It is approved for Stage 2 of the shopping centre in future, which is 8,000 square metres GFA, and this is just an interim night market and live music venue that would be removed once Stage 2 is developed. The other developments it covers are a small cafe on the ground floor of the Vitality Village building and the ability for both the Betinia Shopping Centre and the MoCo Betinia Village Centre on Betinia Island to accommodate a gymnasium tenancy if they wish. And with regard to the cafe and the gymnasium tenancies, those uses under the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme in a local centre or a major centre, which these areas are, would have been as of right. So it's just reflecting current council policy in that regard. Next slide, please. So the locations of these proposed developments are illustrated on the map. Each proposal has previously been assessed with regard to traffic impacts and found to be acceptable by both council and by the state government. The Kawana Town Centre is a major regional activity centre under both the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme and the South East Queensland Regional Plan, and it's a major component of council's economic growth strategy. It's situated in the enterprise corridor that council has identified. So therefore the amendments are recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillors, someone to move? Councillor Cox, a seconder. Councillor Dixon, would you like to open? Councillor Cox?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Councillors, this item here today is the amendments to the Kawana Water Structure Plan, as we've just heard from Mr. Martin. Essentially, these are just retrospective applications to tidy up the planning documents for the Kawana Waters development area, as required by the state government. As we've just heard, the structure plan is about 21 years old, though it's had a number of amendments over the decades, the most recent one in 2017. The proposed amendments here today include the night quarter, the Vitality Village food outlet, the gymnasiums for both the Betinia Shopping Centre and the MoCo development, which have all been previously approved by Council under delegation to the CEO. The state government have also approved all of these uses, though they are requiring the structure plan amendments only to ensure the traffic modelling referenced in the conditions remain an accurate reflection of the current uses on the ground. Traffic impacts on the Kawana Way, which is a state government controlled road, are the responsibility of the Transport and Main Roads, the Department of Transport and Main Roads, to assess. And they have been assessed with the proposed uses in terms of the traffic impact and are satisfied that they do not trigger the need for upgrades. Our own council traffic engineers have also assessed the traffic impacts and have determined they are within the capacity of the network. Though council has conditioned a drop-off zone along Station Road to facilitate the drop-off and pick-up of night quarter patrons without clogging up the local road. Now, we also need to keep in mind that night quarter sits on stage 2 of the Betinia Shopping Centre and is classified as an interim use. Traffic generation for stage 2 would not exceed that of the proposed night quarter as the interim use, and will often be after hours, after those peak times on a Friday and Saturday evenings. So councillors, as we've just heard from the presentation, a lot of it is just retrospective changes to the plan to ensure that it marries up with the state government's documents. So we've also got some recommendations in there, number B and C. So councillors, I just look forward to your support for this here today.
Thank you, Councillor Cox, for your local insights. Do we have any other speakers or questions? Councillor Dixon.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. And just through to Mr Martin, if I could ask, in regards to the officer recommendation C, delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer, are we saying for all future matters related to this item or broadly across the Kawana Water Structure Plan? What are we asking for today?
Through you, Mr Chair, we're seeking a delegation to deal with any future minor or administrative amendments to the structure plan. Any minor or administrative, not just related to these matters, but the reason is we feel that sort of as we get to the pointy end of the development of Kawana Waters, there are going to be more and more of these little issues where the structure plan doesn't quite give the flexibility that's required to complete the development, and it would just help facilitate things like what we're talking about today if the CEO had a delegation. Any substantive changes would obviously still be brought before full council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Dixon. Any other speakers? Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I support all of these uses on that site, so I'm not coming from that point of view. It's interesting to see that one state government department goes with caution in regards to the traffic modelling, and yet another state government department that's responsible for actually building a road, as Councillor Cox said, seem to be dragging the chain. I remember when Kawana Way was first mooted and built, that it was going to eventually be 4 lanes. It would have been smart probably to have built it 4 lanes from the beginning, because with Marucci Boulevard, when we went through the exercise and did the cost-benefit analysis, it was actually cheaper to build it up front rather than build it in stages. But what we now find is that there are congestion issues, and I've experienced it during an election campaign, going to see my parents at the hospital during peak hour. It is a nightmare, and it's unfortunate that we still have the state government department responsible for building this road 20 plus years later, and we still have, I believe, inadequate road for the uses that have happened since. A major hospital precinct with both the public and private hospitals, the high density zone around Batinia to support those people that live in that area and that industry. And yet there's been minor works, minor upgrades to the roundabouts and area between the shopping centre and the hospital. But at peak time, it is a parking lot. An ambulance, you know, emergencies struggle to get through to the hospital. And I find it incredible that here we are trying to understand how one government department says, before you go ahead and approve this under the structure plan, we want to make sure you get the traffic modelling correct. The only concern I have about this is the night markets. The fact that the tickets are sold at the door, and only component that I'm concerned about is Friday afternoon. As we know, the operation is from 4 p.m. till 10 p.m, and that 4 p.m. to probably 6 p.m. is when it comes a parking lot. So it would be great if we could either pre-sell tickets and know that if you can't get in, don't bother going down there. Don't clog the roads anymore. But with the fact that it may be ticketed and tickets sold at the gate, then, and I know that the capacity is 1,200 people, but we may get a generation, more people wanting to go there. And I can see it. I saw it in Brisbane. It's very successful. And I think it will attract a lot of people and a lot of interest. So my concern is that Friday afternoon. I don't have any concerns at all with traffic leaving at 10 p.m. or after the peak hour. I have no concern about the weekend, but I do have concern about that one little block from 4 p.m. maybe to 6:30 when that peak hour hits. So it'd be great for us to do some modelling and have a look and just observe, just for our own learning, our traffic engineers to be able to get that data, what happens on that Friday afternoon once the night quarter opens up. I hope it's successful, but I hope it doesn't become a major issue for us, because it'll be a shame that that sort of takes away the gloss of what should be a great venture and a great asset for the community in that particular location. Because people will come from a lot of different areas, not just from Division 3. They'll come from all over to come and enjoy this facility. And so that is my concern, Mr Deputy Mayor. There's obviously not much we can do, but hope that the government will start to invest in these growth areas, invest in their own infrastructure. The commitment that the Kawana Waters Master Plan makes the council be committed to a process and has to adhere to that, as well as the developer. But for some reason, the state government doesn't obviously believe that it has the same obligation. If you want people to come there, you want development to happen, they have to help and do the heavy lifting as well and provide the infrastructure to make it comfortable and accessible for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli, for your observations and expressing your concerns. Look, related to that, I might like to ask a question. Acknowledging that we actually have a very experienced entertainment venue across the lake in Venue 114, did we seek any feedback from Venue 114 on the operational model that's being proposed, traffic impacts, etc.?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there was no consultation as part of the application process, which was our team's responsibility. Sean, we're not aware of any consultation with Venue 114. I would just add, though, that we do speak to Venue 114 quite often as the rollout of Kawana Waters continues, because they do have a strong interest in various elements, so they are kept informed of what's going on more generally.
Lovely. Thank you, Stephen. Any other speakers or questions, councillors? Would you like to close, Councillor Cox?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy. Councillor Natoli is correct. We have got a state government that obviously hasn't invested in infrastructure here on the Sunshine Coast to fully replicate the Kawana Town Centre as a major regional activity centre for South East Queensland. So we do need to have them invest more significantly in the road network there. However, that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about retrospective amendments to the structure plan. So Council has already approved these things, and yes, you're correct that the road network in certain areas on Kawana Way does fail under certain conditions. However, that once again is not a matter for Council. It is a state government controlled road, and we would certainly love to see that investment, as you've spoken about, into this particular road network. Councillors, I will sort of admit that Councillor Natoli touched on the night quarter for probably that 2-hour period on a Friday afternoon. But what I can say is that stage 2 of the shopping centre, the Petitions Shopping Centre, where this interim use is located, stage 1, I should say, already attracts 5,000 visitors per day. So it's been demonstrated that the interim use of night quarter will generate less traffic than the currently approved stage 2. So that's just something to keep in mind when deciding on the vote here today. But as it said, Councillor Dixon touched on item 3, or part C, I should say, of the officer recommendation, and that is specifically just for those further minor and administrative amendments. So rather than coming back to Council, as these ones often do, it gives that delegation authority straight through to the CEO, which, in my opinion, makes a whole lot of sense. So, councillors, I just ask for your support here today with the recommendation in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your close, Councillor Cox. It's time to vote, councillors. All those in favour of the recommendation? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Now, I'd like to invite the Mayor back into the meeting.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. We'll move on now to item 8.4, which are the Community Partnerships Funding Program recommendations for 2020, and I invite Maggie Catnack to give us a presentation. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you. Good morning to the Chair and councillors. This report seeks council consideration and endorsement of 2 new funding allocations under the Community Partnership Funding Program. So this program was established in 2010 to provide funding certainty to community groups by granting up to 3 years of funding for operational expenses, the most difficult type of funding to secure externally. It is open to establish not-for-profit community organisations that provide those facilities and services which support the delivery of council priorities and demonstrate very broad community benefit. The program is supported by 2 budgets, the Community Partnership Funding Program and the Heritage Levy Program budgets. There are existing commitments for both of these budgets for 2020-21, totalling $904,933 for 125 community organisations that were awarded multiple year funding in 2018 and the 2019 rounds. Current partner organisations include Coast Guards, show societies, community halls, community centres, tennis clubs, bowls clubs, peak industry development organisations, chambers of commerce, animal welfare and rehoming groups, and museums and heritage organisations. To bring new allocations into line with the existing Community Partnership Funding Program agreements, which end at the 30th of June 2021, it is proposed that a maximum of 1 year of funding will be allocated in this round. So the Community Partnership Funding Program for 2020 included a 6-week expression of interest process commencing on the 18th of May to identify potential partners and invite eligible organisations to submit a full application. The applications closed on the 10th of July. At the close of the application period, Council had received 1 new Community Partnership Funding Program application requesting $7,452 in funding from the Millwall Road Community Centre. Council also received a request for a variation from the Sunshine Coast Creative Alliance, who are an existing multi-year partner, that they were seeking additional $4,000 in funding to cover the extra cost of their new responsibility for the management of the subtropic studio at the Caloundra bus interchange. So assessment of applications is based on general program criteria and the category-specific assessment, and those criteria are detailed in the program guidelines. The report recommends a total of $11,452 in funding for 2020-21. That's of new funding, comprising of the $7,452 to establish 1 new partnership and with the Millwall Road Community Centre, and $4,000 additional funding to extend the scope of that existing partnership with Sunshine Coast Creative Alliance. So the 2020-21 Community Partnership Funding Program budget is sufficient to support the recommendations in this report. And as this is the final year of the current 3-year cycle of the program, a review will be undertaken over the coming year to identify if it is achieving its aim and if there's any need for adjustments prior to the commencement of the next 3-year cycle. So this report actually just seeks council endorsement for those officer recommendations. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Maggie. Can I have someone move? Councillor Law, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Law?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. And Maggie and your team in the community grants section, thank you so much for the work that you do supporting and negotiating and assisting the community organisations, the not-for-profits and the other 125 people that you help to ensure that they can get the community funding that they need to keep their organisations going. More than ever, this funding is so important, as we've already discussed today, around the challenges that organisations face through uncertain times. I can't really add much more to support your recommendations except to urge my colleagues to support the ongoing programme so that the certainty is there and the effort and the work of the volunteers of these organisations can be focused on service delivery, can be focused on the essential reason and purpose that they exist, and that they don't have to be concerned with meeting costs such as insurance or some rental fees or just the ongoing operational element that this programme supports. So I recommend and I support everything that you've provided, and I please give our thanks to your team who've made this possible through council support. But please, I urge my colleagues to give this support for another year, and then we can work towards making sure that these essential community partnership funding can continue into the future and support what we've done over the last 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Any other speakers? Councillor Johnston.
Mr Mayor, I don't think it's necessary for me to say anything except to compliment Councillor Law on being so eloquently correct in relation to everything that he said.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. No further speakers? No need to close, Councillor Law. We'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Well done. Thank you, Maggie and Stephanie. Item 8.5 is the Sunshine Coast International Broadband Network Project Update, August 2020, and I invite Greg Laverty to present. Thank you, Greg.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So, Councillors, an update on the cable project since the last report to Council. The most important milestone was that at the 31st of March that the testing and commissioning phases of the project were complete and the cable is now ready for service. So that's within the mid-2020 timeframe that we established for the project back in 2018. We've also signed an agreement with AusCyber to establish a Sunshine Coast Cyber Security Innovation Node on the Sunshine Coast. One of the negatives to come out of the COVID period was that there was a substantial increase in identity theft and cyber security breaches, and one of the local companies here located out of the university, ID Care, unfortunately saw an increase of 28% in their business. So while the extra business is good, the reasons for that are not. So with the future predictions being that the cybersecurity industry might be worth up to $250 billion US by 2025, it's a great opportunity for local businesses to grow and be part of that in relation to exports, but also some of the education that's available from that cyber node will help to upskill the local businesses to try and reduce the threats to those businesses going forward. OneCode became the first carrier to install equipment within the cable landing station, so that's the first stage of activating the project, both in relation to the cable landing station itself in Maud Street and then international and domestic capacity. OneCode are looking to roll out connectivity from the cable landing station, and along with a range of other businesses, there are currently plans and in some cases projects underway that will see the benefits of the cable roll out to places like Sunshine Coast Airport, to Sippy Downs, a specific customer out there, down to Caloundra, the health precinct, and then potentially some places more broad, including Nambour. So we'll continue to work with those local businesses as they benefit from the project. We've signed an agreement with Amazon Web Services, and again, this is about digital upskilling for local businesses initially. So there'll be free services available to those local businesses to upskill in relation to, again, cybersecurity, cloud computing, machine learning, and a range of other things. So great opportunity there, and the longer term plan with that is that as that upskilling happens, businesses get used to services by Amazon, they would become customers, and then Amazon may take some sort of small presence on the Sunshine Coast. And the last one on the bottom there is that the JGA North system was successfully completed. So Council hooks into the JGA South component of the network, which is Japan, Guam, Australia, the southern component. So the connection from the Sunshine Coast to Japan will be the fastest from the east coast of Australia, and the previous or the existing connection between Sydney and Japan, that cable is over 20 years old. So significant opportunities there, and now that the actual physical work is complete, we'll continue to work hard with quite a number of businesses to generate the opportunities from that project for the local economy, and also with organisations like Queensland Connectivity Network to extend those benefits to broader parts of Queensland. So, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions on the project update.
Okay. First of all, can I get someone to move? Councillor O'Prey. Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Suarez. Sorry, did you want to open, Councillor? Thank you. Did someone have a question there? Councillor Babrowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just like to ask whether the timing of the first payment from the $15 million state grant has been factored into the budget, just to some extent to highlight to the community that there is a $15 million contribution to this project from the state.
Through Mr Mayor, that's correct. So the first payment of $2.5 million from the state has been received by Council in last financial year. There are 2 more milestone payments to be achieved, and we're looking to submit the second claim to the state by the end of September.
No further questions. There is a confidential attachment. Councillor Dixon.
Yeah. Through you, Mr Mayor. Whilst many of us in the room would know what this project's about, I think it's probably worth Mr Laverty talking a little bit more broadly about what the subsea cable is, what the benefits are. You know, not many people would know that there's about 550 kilometres of cable. Cable is about a garden hose wide. The actual fibre optics inside the glass are about human hair in diameter. So there's a lot of interesting facts about the cable. But I do find that we miss the opportunity to really celebrate what we've got. There's not many of these around the country, and this is the closest link with Guam and also with Japan, and that goes off, I understand, to the United States as well. So whilst it's good to talk about the report, let's actually celebrate what this project's good for.
Mr Laverty, can you give a brief summary that would benefit our
Sure.
viewers?
So through Mr Mayor, so I guess the first thing to point out is that any international connectivity, be it something on social media, whether it's a telephone call, a text message, internet pages, access to movies on Netflix and other things, all Uber rides are actually done out of the United States. So all of that connectivity up until now goes from the Sunshine Coast and the broader parts of Queensland and goes terrestrial via Sydney and out through the cables that currently land in Sydney. It goes to whatever the destination is in the world, and then it comes back with that cable to Sydney and then terrestrial back to the Sunshine Coast and, like I said, the rest of Queensland. So there is significant capacity and international connectivity that happens. It has been consistent growth of 40% every year on the volume of traffic that goes out on those international cables, and the forecasts are that that will continue. So for the first time, that direct international connectivity for all of that communication will be available directly from the Sunshine Coast. One of the significant benefits from partnering with RTI, as opposed to some of the other proponents we looked at, is that RTI actually have a network. So from the Sunshine Coast, people can connect back to Sydney, which is an important domestic connection, particularly by providing a diverse path and reducing the risk of outages of any of that communication. Then we head north to Guam, and from Guam there is a significant number of cables that connect to a whole range of places across the world. But on the RTI network, we can go to Sydney, we can go to Guam, we can go direct to Japan, and we can go to the United States. And there are also plans that have been announced for an additional cable to be built to Singapore and potentially into Darwin. So great opportunities for council to connect into that network, as opposed to the majority of the other cables that will just go from point to point. Some of the options that we looked at was that it would go direct to Guam and nowhere else, or direct to the United States. So in a world that is increasingly becoming digital and more reliant on that, the diversity, the lower latency, i.e. the speed from the Sunshine Coast, is a significant advantage to businesses setting up on the Sunshine Coast and broader parts of Queensland.
No, I'm not going to close. There's a confidential attachment that we need to address. If everything else has been done, we might move to that. Someone happy to move? Councillor Babarowski, thank you. Someone to second. Councillor O'Prey. Councillor Johnson. No, and I'll get Mr. Laverty to do that as part of that confidential attachment. So we've got a mover and a second. Would you mind just outlining, Mr. Laverty, for the benefit of councillors, the need to deal with this next item in confidential, please?
Through Mr. Mayor. So there is a contractual disagreement in relation to the interpretation of one of those contracts. Those contracts require council not to disclose that information, but more particularly, council needs to decide its course of action, and it's best for the benefit of both council and obviously our ratepayers that the best outcome is sought by council, and that will be best done by having that conversation in confidential session.
All those in favour of going into confidential session? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Yep, that's fine. Okay, thank you. We're back in open session, and I'm going to go to Councillor O'Prey to close, I think. I don't think there are any. We've dealt with all the matters. Go to Councillor O'Prey to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And in closing, I'd firstly like to thank the staff, Greg and your team. An amazing job for what you've done throughout the years for the subsea cable. It's been an amazing opportunity for our region, our Sunshine Coast, economically one of the best, and congratulations to your team. To Sarah, thanks for your advice today and your teams as well. Mr Mayor, this subsea cable, when you think about it, it's an invisible artery to the Sunshine Coast. It comes all the way from basically LA, Guam to here, and nobody can see it. The only thing you see is a double-sided manhole at Access 150 at Maroochydore Beach, and then you don't see it again. It goes underground all the way to the landing station in Maud Street. It's invisible, and it's one of our greatest assets that we will ever see on the Sunshine Coast. So the opportunities that this will bring to our children, our grandchildren going forward is just absolutely tremendous. So I congratulate everyone, and I look forward to more of these negotiations with businesses wanting to come along in the Sunshine Coast, and I put forward this to Council and look forward to your support.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We're going to break for morning tea. It's 10 past. I'm going to suggest we have 15 minutes to 25 past. Before we do break, Councillor Dixon, in respect of item 8.6 and 8.7, 8.6, I want to inform you that under section 175C(2) of the Local Government Act 2019, I may have a material personal interest in matters that are the subject of agenda item 8.6 on the basis that I am an employer representative director of the LGIA Super, which holds a 32.5% stake in the Sunshine Coast Airport through asset manager Palisade, and in line with the requirements of section 175C(2) of the Act, I'll leave the chamber and not participate. I won't come back to the chamber and not participate in the vote on that matter. And following that, of course, is item 8.7, and I'm informing you that under section 175C brackets 2 of the Local Government Act 2009, I have a material personal interest in the matter that is the subject of item 8.7 on the basis that the report relates to my intended nomination for the re-election as President of the Local Government Association of Queensland, a position which I've held since October 2016. And in line with the requirements of section 175(2) of the Act, I will not return to the chamber whilst that matter is dealt with as well, and will rely on the Deputy Mayor to manage those two items. So let's break now for morning tea and resume at 25 past. Thank you.
So, councillors and anybody choosing to watch, welcome back. Councillors, it's time to consider 8.6, the Sunshine Coast Airport Expansion Project Update. I will thank the Mayor for his declaration. Just check, are there any other declarations before we proceed? No? In that case, I'll ask Tom Jamieson to give the presentation. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, councillors, executives. The purpose of this report is to give an update on the progress of the Sunshine Coast Airport Expansion Project as of 30th of June 2020. Firstly, this report represents a hugely significant milestone in Council's largest infrastructure project. Bit of a recap, there's two photographs here, one in May 2019 where the site held over 300 megalitres of water, and by May 2020 the works have been completed and we were awaiting final certification. This is a photograph taken in August, and from June the 14th of this year the runway has now been fully operational. Some key features of the works that have been completed: 2,450 metres long, 45 metres wide, a 300-metre wide runway strip, line marking compliant, and in-ground lighting compliant with the MOS standards, a new bitumen sealed perimeter roads, secure airside fence, extensive drainage channels and culverts, and a new parallel half-length taxiway. One of the major milestones was on the 24th of April when CASA flight checked the airfield ground lighting during daylight hours as well as during the night. Their plane flew the strip an altitude of 50 feet and approval and verification was given. A few of the other completed construction works, clockwise from top left. So we have aircraft parked on the new aprons to the northwest of the terminal prior to the COVID travel restrictions. In the middle, centre middle, the aircraft lighting equipment room. Top right is the main drainage channels and culverts away from the airport on the southern side. Bottom right was a key feature was the trapezoidal grooving to the entire length of the runway, which was a first for Queensland and results in sloping grooves which allows for better water removal during landing periods. And finally, on the bottom left, is the new illuminated wind indicator. A key feature to allow us to hand over the operation of the runway was to ensure that the obstacle limitation surfaces were all prepared. This is the area highlighted within the blue and where the vegetation was trimmed to ensure that there was no penetration into the OLS. In the centre, there's a photograph there showing that the operations undertaken by the helicopters to carry away cut branches so that they didn't fall through, causing damage to the trees, but also making a safe working area. We had significant rain during this operation, and this resulted in more ponded water, but also mosquito infestations, and Ross River fever became a real issue for the workers. I would just like to take this moment that to pass a comment that after too many years of doing major projects, that I am firmly of a believer that great projects are made by great people. Ross Ullman, the team, can't be here today, but I would like to express our thanks for the work that they have done to bring this significant project to bear. ORAT was the operational readiness aspect of the project, and as can be seen by this picture, this slide, it involved a significant number of organisations, federal, state, as well as contractors, subcontractors, all firmly focused on the one objective of getting the runway ready for the handover date. Some key stats, pretty much there in terms of the total completion. Really, all we have now is the lean mix concrete and rigid concrete pavements, and those will be completed by mid-September, which I can then pick up in terms of the project schedule, so the programme schedule. So yes, the runway has been handed over to SCA, but the overall project is still to be completed, and that is due for PC practical completion in mid-December. And the contractor is well on track for that date. Thank you. In terms of the works that are still outstanding under separable portion 3, we've got 350 metres of the runway starter extension, as well as taxi foxtrot, linking the starter extension to the apron bays, as well as completing the airport rescue firefighting service route, which is shown in the green. They're currently operating on the yellow line, and that allows them to provide their desired level of service should it be required. And looking at it from a different viewpoint, we have a new culvert crossing of the eastern drain to facilitate the fire response routes. The old runway is marked now as a taxiway, and the runway starter extension is in the right-hand side of the photograph. On the Friday the 12th of June 2020, the Mayor officially opened and handed over the runway to SCA. The State Minister Kate Jones represented the Premier, and then on the first aircraft landed on Sunday the 14th, an Alliance Fokker aircraft call sign QQ 1331 in recognition of the new runway designation. And the fire service provided the traditional water cannon salute. And finally, just a financial summary. The budget is as shown. We are still on schedule, as I say, for PC in December, and the project remains on schedule and on budget. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jameson, for very capably fitting in the shoes of Mr. Ross Allman. So, councillors, is anybody prepared to move? Councillor O'Prey. Seconded, Councillor Winston. Would you like to open?
Sure do. Thank you, Mr Chair, and through you, thank you, Ross. Tom, I just wanted to firstly re-quote you. Your first words when you brought this report to Council this morning was, "This is a hugely significant report." Councillors, let's not underestimate that. This is a hugely significant report in regard to the completion of our Sunshine Coast runway. And with that, I'd like to say an enormous amount of thank yous. Firstly, thank all the councillors that are here today that have had the opportunity, particularly even the new ones that have come in on board right at the end of the development of this runway. They've still had to make some very important decisions. I'd also like to thank our former councillors, Steve Robinson, who headed aviation for 2 terms and did a sterling job. I'd also like to thank former Deputy Mayor Tim Dwyer, who was head of major projects for the last term. These 2 councillors, which I personally really respect at the highest level, and I'm sure many of the councillors around the table would agree, that have put an enormous amount of time and effort and energy and personal sacrifice into making sure that we made these right decisions all the way along. Of course, to Ross Orman, who unfortunately can't be here today for the most significant report. Ross is just a genius. I love him to bits. He went to a million community meetings with me and faced every single possible question under the sun and answered them honestly, appropriately, in a timely manner, respectfully, because at times it did get tense. And Ross Orman, to me, is one of our superstars within council. But prior to Ross Orman, we also had Peter Pallett. Peter Pallett was our former, he wasn't chair, what was his position? He was the general manager of the Sunshine Coast Airport prior to our transfer. Peter Pallett, again, was very instrumental in a lot of the works that took place in the lead up to the runway, and I was very pleased to see him there the day that plane landed for the very first time. To Tom Jamieson and your team, extraordinary works, an enormous amount of work, particularly working with all those contractors and all those difficulties that come across our desk and across the community in regard to, the environmental impacts, the PFAS, the noise constraints. There's a lot of work that you and your team have done, and it's a very important part of the role of the development of this runway, and I thank you for that. Also to Economic Development, Greg Laverty's team, and of course Michael Costello's team for managing the money, because without that, we haven't got anything. So, Michael, to you and your team, thank you very, very much. To John Holland and all the contractors particularly, but John Holland as the overarching deliverer, the works that they've done on time, on budget, it's just exceptional work, and I congratulate everyone. And they're a good bunch of guys too. I had the opportunity many times to go out there and just have a chat and go out on site and put the work boots on and scuff the dirt. And it was really, really good and encouraging to know that those guys love it, live it and breathe it. So thank you to John Holland. And with the operations now taking place since June 14 from memory, the somewhat underwhelming opening, I know that we had grandeur plans of having all sorts of music and entertainment and cars running up and down the runway to celebrate. Unfortunately, in these times, we couldn't do any of that. We had a very small but yet significant opening. We had a couple of times where community groups did manage to get out onto the runway and celebrate in their own little ways. But most importantly, I'd like to wish Sunshine Coast Airport Proprietary Limited all the very best and all their successes, because quite frankly, their successes now going forward are going to be the Sunshine Coast community successes, both economically and also just for the community's sake. The Sunshine Coast Airport and the runway is without question the biggest project that this council's ever delivered. It'll be a very, very long time before we deliver a bigger one. So I congratulate everyone that's been involved. Thank you very much, Mr Chair.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey, for such a considered opening and thoughtful acknowledgements. Any other speakers or questions? No? Would you like to close?
Nailed it, apparently. No, thank you. Just again, thank you very much for the presentation today. Tom.
Councillors, it's time to vote. All those in favour of the recommendation? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, it's time to move on to item 8.7, which is the exercise of Sunshine Coast Council's voting entitlement in the election of the next President of the Local Government Association of Queensland. I'd like to acknowledge the Mayor's declaration and just check, are there any other declarations? Pretty unlikely. No. In that case, do we have a yes, we do have a presentation, I think. So we'd now move to invite Craig Matheson to give a presentation. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good morning, councillors. The report before you this morning at agenda item 8.7 is a very brief report, and effectively it's a machinery matter to seek your endorsement in relation to Mayor Jamison's intended nomination to contest the presidency of the Local Government Association of Queensland for another 4 years. Every 4 years, at the first annual general meeting of the Local Government Association of Queensland, there is a vote for the role of president. Any mayor or councillor can nominate for election as president. Nominations have not yet opened. I understand the advice I have is that will likely occur in early September, but in line with the practice this council adopted in 2016, we thought it was appropriate to put this matter before council prior to the nominations opening to seek council's position in the context of the Mayor's proposal to seek re-election. As you're aware, the Mayor was first elected as President of the Local Government Association in October 2016, and the elections for the next 4-year term will take place at the annual general meeting that will take place on the 21st of October 2020 this year. They're the key elements of the report. Council has a voting entitlement at the annual general meeting of 10 votes. Every council has in Queensland, which makes up the membership of the LGAQ, has a prescribed voting entitlement, and so the intention will be that, subject to council's resolution today on this matter, that the voting entitlement will be exercised by council's delegate in attendance at the LGAQ annual general meeting. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Matheson, and forgive me for using your first name, a little too casual. Councillors, do we have someone to move the recommendation? Councillor Cox, a seconder. Councillor Dixon, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Councillors, clearly the matter in front of us here today is one of quite high importance for the LGAQ, who represent the 77 councils across Queensland. The Mayor's nomination for the President to continue in that role, I think is one that is certainly well deserved. Over the last 4 years, the Mayor, in my opinion, has done an outstanding job in advocating for councils across the state. And I just want to read one of the quick paragraphs that was in the report, just because I think there's huge praise to be put on the Mayor in his role as President of the LGAQ. But in the report, it talks about the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it says, under Mayor Jamison's leadership, the LGA moved quickly to develop the battle plan and secured more than $420 million in additional funding from both the federal and state governments, which will assist local governments to respond to the needs of their communities. That there in itself is an outstanding achievement for the Mayor as his role as President, and I just think highlights the need to have someone of his experience in the role to continue on as President. So thank you, Mr Matheson, for compiling this report, and councillors, I strongly urge you to consider the recommendation in front of us here today.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Any other speakers or questions? I might rise to just mention that considering we do have a number of new councillors who may have some concern that taking on the role of presidency could have some tension with being the Mayor of the Sunshine Coast, I'd just like to reassure you that my observations were that the Mayor handled those two roles incredibly well. I think he would always essentially put the role as Mayor, Sunshine Coast first whenever it was important to do so. And in terms of the time required to fulfil those two roles, I think, again, he made incredibly good judgments, and the value that we received as a region from his leadership and the profile that provided for us as a region, I think was incredibly valuable. So far more pros than cons, if that helps you to be reassured, councillors. No other speakers or questions? Would you like to close? In that case, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That concludes, thank you, Mr Matheson. That concludes item 8.7. We now move on to notice of motions, and I'll recall the Mayor, invite the Mayor to rejoin the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Bobrowski and councillors. We're up to item 9.1, which is a notice of motion from Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I move that the Council A direct the Chief Executive Officer to ensure the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit preliminary business case and option analysis is not finalised or advanced to the State Government Department of Transport and Main Roads interest check until such time as B below is completed. B, request the Chief Executive Officer to 1. Prepare a report for consideration at the ordinary meeting of the 17th of September 2020 regarding the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit preliminary business case and options analysis, allowing for Council to determine to immediately release the documentation to the public at that time. 2, develop and present a comprehensive and meaningful community engagement plan which must be undertaken, completed and incorporated in the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit preliminary business case prior to proceeding through to phase 3 of the detailed business case. And 3, communicate to the Department of Transport and Main Roads that Council will only proceed with the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit detailed business case if the community engagement process identifies majority community support for the preliminary business case and options analysis, and 4, ensure the final preliminary business case, including the outcome of the community engagement, is presented to Council for final endorsement and decision prior to proceeding to phase 3.
Got a seconder? Councillor Winston, thank you. Carry on, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I moved to the Sunshine Coast in 1970. Back then, the population of the coast was roughly about 30,000 people. And in that time, I've seen significant growth right across the whole length and breadth of the coast, from Caloundra right through to Noosa. And obviously, we've all seen that growth and we understand the impacts. We understand that we have obligations and we have a need to be able to understand how we're going to be impacted by development in the future, by growth and those impacts. But during that period of time, that growth has been a natural growth that I think people who've lived here, moved here during that period of time, have become accustomed to being able to manage that. It's been at a pace, and I think in recent times there has been an uncomfortable aspect of that growth that is about the acceleration of development and the impact. And we talked today about the impacts on roads. Most of the roads obviously are that are impacted as state government roads, are significantly underinvested by the state government on the Sunshine Coast, and yet we keep talking about inviting more and more people here. We've set these targets, urban targets, and yet our road infrastructure is failing, and in particular the underinvestment of billions of dollars to our region is quite significant. So this process of the mass transit study has been going on since 2011, Bob Abbott's council, and it's progressed through the last two terms under Mayor Jamison's terms, and now into this his third term. And during that period of time, there has been one time that the council has gone out to do major public consultation, and it was during the period of October and November 2014, 6 years ago, that the last lot of serious public consultation was done on the mass transit. At that time, the community were asked about a whole range of different types of transit options, whether they wanted light rail, rapid bus systems, whatever it was, obviously identify their need, their potential use and so forth, and overwhelmingly the community supported that. You ask people, do you want light rail? As far as I'm concerned, a lot of people's response was yes. But when you put that with the urbanisation strategy that has come into this play after the last regional plan and subsequently in the last couple of years, we've had a team of people work in council that are working towards that corridor, 13-kilometre corridor that's been identified and supported by council, and subsequent reports that have come to council that have identified that that potential corridor could grow in numbers that is extraordinary. And yet there is no indication that we're going to be talking to the community before we hand it over to the state government to take on phase 3. Now, before we do that, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to understand that we have an obligation to make sure that our community really understand what the full impact of the decision in terms of moving forward into phase 3. And these figures that I talk about, 11,000 properties since White settlement that are developed in that 13-kilometre corridor, to move to 50,000, 23,000 people that have settled since White settlement in that corridor, and in the next 21-year planning horizon to just under 104,000 people. It's 5 times that population. Significant change in direction and significant change in the way that we deal with growth and development here on the coast ever since I've been here. That is a game changer. And I think it's incumbent upon us as councillors to make sure that our community is completely aware of it. We should have nothing to hide. If it's so good, then we should be singing out the praises of what we're proposing. We should be putting that to our community without fear that our community would hopefully support it. And if they do, then that's great. We then go with a community that embraces and understands and supports a decision to then give it to the state government. But we don't have that. We don't have that at this point in time in the process. And for me, before we go and spend any further money, I believe that we need to take a break in this process for a couple of reasons. One is that our community needs to have a say. They need to understand and they need to have a say. The other thing is that the coastal the coastal hazard adaptation strategy that should have been completed by June 2020 is now being delayed by 6 months.
Councillor, can I get you an extension? I need to get you an extension. Move, Councillor Johnston. Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Suarez. All those in favour? Carry on, Councillor.
And of course, that document is a really important document because this light rail, rapid bus service, whatever we choose, is going to be right in that corridor where this strategy will have a major implication. I don't know what's in that strategy, but it'd be nice to have that informed. So in terms of wanting to proceed forward, councillors, I just don't know why we need to rush this and why we can't take that opportunity to be able to at least go to the community and give them the information that all of us are going to be given. Now, I want to talk about consultation. And all of us, like in our own personal life, if we were husband and wife or partners and we made a significant decision on our own without consulting the other, could you imagine what that will do to the relationship? Can you just imagine? I know partnerships, business partnerships that have fallen apart because one partner took it upon themselves to make a decision and it all fell apart after that. There's no going back. Once you make that decision without consultation, you take it upon yourself to take that decision without bringing those that you should be consulting with along the journey, then I think we will understand the problem that we will have if we don't take the community along with us. I know that since we were elected, public consultation has been a major focus for us. I think engaging with the community. And, we're guided by a number of principles. It's not us. The state government, obviously, they have written into the Local Government Act the local government principles. And I'll just take the extract of A and C. A, it says transparent and effective processes and decision-making in the public interest. In the public interest. And C, democratic representation, social inclusion, and meaningful community engagement. Now, councillors, early in the week, we had Liam Mayo, who was at our workshop dealing with corporate plan. And the reason, I included the word meaningful as part of the community consultation is in BY we all agreed to include meaningful as part of our community consultation. And that's the reason why that is in the wording here. But just to talk through some of the things that Liam had about our strong community and the way that we communicate with our community. And a strong community talks about together we thrive. In all of our communities, people are included, treated with respect, and opportunities are available to all. Our methods of community engagement is that community engagement is a process that ultimately seeks to involve the community, that is citizens, businesses and stakeholders, in matters that affect the community. Engagement processes can extend from an information sharing and consultation phase to an interaction, to an active participation level of involvement and collaboration. It is well documented that effective community engagement and involvement of community and decisions that matter to them leads to better decision making and shared outcomes. That's in our corporate plan. And that is the corporate plan that is from before. That hasn't been modified. And what the community have told through that build-in of the corporate plan, when exploring the excellence in engagement, they were asked what an engaged community meant to them. And their response was that they wanted collaboration and activation, inclusion and cohesion, to be made aware, involved, and to be heard. That is significant. To be made aware. I want the community to be made aware of what's in the preliminary business case. I want them to be involved in communicating back to us, and then I want us, councillors, for them to be heard. And when they talk about the proactive principles, they talk about that they are to engage early, engage often, and be proactive. And that's exactly what I'm saying here. Engage early. Don't wait deep down into the detailed business case and then hope that we can pull it back from there. Let's deal with it now. Let's show the community what's there. And the one thing that, as part of that proactive principles, was that identify the non-negotiables. And councillors, I can't identify anything more significant about the preliminary business case and options analysis is a non-negotiable, as far as I'm concerned, for our community, that they expect to be consulted, they expect to be engaged early, and they expect to be heard. So I would hope that councillors can support the notice of motion that I put before you.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you, just want to firstly acknowledge Councillor Natoli in putting this notice of motion forward. If you can give him anything, it's consistency. He's been out there talking about this for some time and he's consistently followed up. To start with, I don't have any problem for the record with community consultation. I'm happy to back that. A recent example was the M2M cycleway in Councillor Natoli's area. I get it. Obviously, it's about communication with residents. But let's have a reality check here and get real. The people mainly impacted by mass transit and development along the coastal foreshore area, and I call that Division 2 and 3 and 4, mainly the impacted areas. They're the people who are speaking up. We're hearing from them, and I've seen some surveys done, about 450 responses. In the last couple of weeks, I've had 2 residents I've verified from Division 6 raise the issue with me, and they both sent a verbatim copy of a cut and paste from online. So I get it. They're sharing their expression of frustration. I've got a few difficulties here. Very, very happy with that. Very, very happy with the engagement. Fine. Happy to support it because I think that's exactly what Council was going to do anyway when we meet to discuss this in the future. That's what I'm preempting. I mentioned to Councillor Natoli this morning my difficulty here is in B3, and that is about locking Council in my opinion, to only moving forward if we get majority support of the Sunshine Coast region. Now, depends how you want to play this. In my mind, if the region speaks up and says to Division 2, 3 and 4, get real, we need mass transit, we need development, and the rest of the region dictate to that corridor, that may not play into the favour of Councillor Natoli. So that could go either direction, Councillor Joe. You could have your region speak up by majority and it outweighs the rest of the region. Don't know. I can't predict that, but I don't support us locking ourselves into a decision now because we haven't even had that level of work come to us. So I'll keep speaking, and I'd like Councillor Natoli to consider potentially allowing an amendment or considering an amendment for B3 to remove any reference to Council not proceeding unless it has the majority support for the prelim business case. So have a think about that. But there's a lot to consider here, Mr Mayor. You've got a transport strategy, which is one thing. You're talking about mass transit. Is it rapid bus transport? Is it light rail? Don't know. Don't know. Could be driverless cars. Don't know. We're planning for it. We've got a planning scheme review that hasn't even started. We haven't even started our work on the new town plan. What does that mean? Where is the growth? Will this council continually allow major rampant development like Aura and Palmview? Will it allow that? Will it have another 10 of those estates to compensate for infill development, knocking down trees, building satellite cities all the way out to the hinterland, destroying the fabric of the Sunshine Coast? Or do we continue to focus on putting people where the services are, where the hospitals are, where the schools are, and building a public transport system for that? I think there's a debate that needs to be had, and transport goes hand in hand with the development strategy that we haven't got. When people email me or call me and say, Christian, no 40-storey buildings on the beach, well, yeah, I agree with them too. I haven't seen those plans for Gold Coast or Brisbane-style development in that corridor. I haven't seen them. If you've got those plans, show me, because I haven't seen them. I've asked our staff for them. I called Mr Rupre this morning and asked him for those plans as well. Where is the Gold Coast high-rise development proposals that this council has? Show me them, because I want to see them. He hasn't got them. We haven't got those plans. We haven't even got to that stage yet. So there's a lot of water to go under that bridge yet, Mr Mayor, but I do support Councillor Natoli's notion that we need to be in this together. We need to have that journey. We need to bring residents with us, and we need to hear their suggestions. And on that point, I want to hear their suggestions. Consistently, what I do hear a lot of is what we don't want. We don't want this and we don't want that, and that's okay. People can express those opinions, but bring some solutions to the table as well. I think our local state members could help us with that as well. We're very, very close to an October election, and I'd like to hear some more commitments from our state members about what they can do and not what they don't support. Let's hear about what the state members can bring to the table, because it's this council and the Labor government who have been continually delivering on transport outcomes for this region. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. We've got a $7.5 million match with the state government, the Labor government, to actually start to take public transport serious on the Sunshine Coast. I'm not trying to play politics, Mr Mayor, but it'd be easier if those in other parties, even independents, came forward and had a solution for us. You know, if it's not light rail and it's not density and it's not rapid transport, what is it? Let's actually see some other plans and put them out there and see if we can bring these people to the table and actually talk about what solutions there are. So in closing, Mr Mayor, if Councillor Natoli would consider some form of an amendment to B3, I would actually like to support him here today.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you. And through you, Mr Mayor, a couple of questions, if I may, first. Mr Mayor, given that Councillor Natoli has raised development associated with mass transit, I think it's important to consider what the alternatives would be if we do not allow some density increases around mass transit stations. Councillor Natoli has made a number of public statements on his Facebook page about what they should be. And I'd like to know if those comments reflect Councillor Natoli's views about the alternatives. These comments include, well, why not use the only rail corridor we have, which is about to be duplicated to house the population increases? To a commentator who disagreed with him, he said, move the future population growth to the rail corridor. They already have a north-south track. He also said, why won't you consider putting the population growth along the existing rail corridor, Glasshouse to Yandina? And why aren't you advocating for those 80,000 people to be allocated along the existing rail corridor? And another commentator on his page said, population growth along the rail corridor is the way to go as long as it's not on the coastal strip. Councillor Natoli responded, my view, exactly. It does not need to be along the coastal strip. So again, I'd like to know if these comments reflect Councillor Natoli's views.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. I'm really pleased that you're taking note of some of those comments on my Facebook page. When we had the first and only briefing about mass transit here, and I asked the consultant, what other options have you considered in regards to the urbanisation strategy? Because I didn't see this as a mass transit study. I saw it as an urbanisation strategy with a light rail or rapid bus service to enable that population growth to happen in that 13-kilometre corridor. And his response to me was that that was any option that council gave him. So I'm putting out that maybe we haven't considered all of the options that we should be considering. And we have a CanCos corridor that comes off from Biwa that will go through big future growth centres of Aura and Biwa East. And that rail line goes close to the through past Caloundra Road, where it could accommodate a station for the Caloundra people, fixing some of the problems on Caloundra Road that we may have, and we do have every time we come to Caloundra. It goes on to the hospital, exactly where the light rail will end up in option, the first stage, and then it continues on to the Kawana Business Centre and to the Maroochydore new CBD. We have these options. We've got that corridor. But why aren't we talking about these other options? Why is it all of a sudden that there's only one option on the paper, on the table? The community has had no say about this. This is something that has been obviously put to the consultant. This is the only option available for you to consider and work on that option only. I'm saying to you that the community should have a say on how we want this to be developed. If you want to make the 23,000 people in that corridor the sacrificial lambs and allow them to endure the mass growth that they have and their lifestyle choices that they've made to be given up for something that I'm not even sure will work. I'm not even sure being able to get my head right down into the detail of the preliminary business case because it hasn't been tabled at this stage. and I don't have a copy of it. All I've had is a briefing. So that's where my comments are coming, that we should have more than one option on the table.
Thank you, Councillor Tolley. Councillor Babarowski, carry on.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, another alternative that Councillor Natoli has raised, well, now several times, is increasing the number of dwellings in Caloundra South area. I would like to know if Councillor Natoli would still propose that that should be considered as an alternative to development in what he calls the coastal strip.
As I said, that's another option that we should consider. Again, the Camp Coast Rail Corridor comes right between those two major centres. Most of it's greenfield. We keep allowing these developers to build these low density, some people might call them high density, but they're basically detached lots, very small detached lots, cram a lot of people in there, but they can even go greater than that. They built a high density, transit-orientated communities around the Camp Coast Rail Corridor. That could be another option. At least those people that buy into that know exactly what they're going to get. At least we can have it designed. If we're going to head down that path and encourage people to use public transport, make that community design around that, as we are doing with the CBD in Maroochydore. So again, I keep putting to you, councillors, the consultant has only looked at one option. I'm putting it out there to say that as part of this consultation process, I believe the broader community has a right to have a say about how we deal with the future urbanisation of the Sunshine Coast. That's all I've said.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Babarowski.
I do have a further question, but then I'd like to speak to the motion. Through you, Mr Mayor, considering that Councillor Natoli has been publicly calling into question, I think, the motives of Council and the councillors, I think it's important to get everything out in the open. In an online discussion on this issue 2 weeks ago, Councillor Natoli used his official Facebook page to like a comment that called me personally a spruiker or marketeer for high density and light rail, called me a crony of the Mayor, and described me as gushing at the prospect of the money his white-shoed mates could make out of this. Look, as someone who does my best to treat my colleagues with respect, and as someone who's never taken a dollar, not a dollar from developers, and no connection to the development industry, I'd like to know what Councillor Natoli meant by liking that comment. Was it agreement, encouragement, both, or what?
Councillor Babarowski has previously made strong representation in regards to the view that this is the panacea for all of our, for the future growth, infill growth that we have here on the coast. And the fact that you want to put that into a corridor, in that 13-kilometre corridor, is purely because you need the numbers, you need the development to happen to make light rail work. Now, I know that this is a passionate issue for you, and you've taken the carriage for that. You've taken it forward in terms of newspaper, as well as television stories that have been documented. And you go out there and you say that you are supporting this process. And what happens out of that is that we have the potential of massive development. And who's going to benefit from that? I never said that you personally would, but the development industry certainly would be very interested in making sure that they could develop in the prized location along the beach corridor. And I'm sure that if we were to talk about other areas along the coast, like Coolum, right through along the coastal fringes, all the way through to Maroochydore to Caloundra, then that's just the easy stuff for the developers. We just keep opening up the corridors for them to be able to do that. And I ultimately think that we need to understand that it's people's lifestyles out there that need to be protected and understood. And the prayer today by the pastor clearly indicated that we want to ensure that we can preserve the enviable lifestyle that we have here on the coast. And that's all that comment was about.
Do you want to speak now, or you want to happy for some other?
I'm happy for some others.
Councillor Landsberg.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and I'll break up the conversation a little bit, but first of all, as a new councillor and witnessing what's happened in the past, and I have been a resident here for over 35 years and watched the changes of our roads and infrastructure and the demands on everything, and even my own daughter now takes 40 minutes to drive from Maroochydore to Watowa. Not a happy camper, I can tell you. But our transit bus services, a driver I know personally, the abuse that they witness on the roads out to Aura, where there's no drop-off points, the roads aren't wide enough. People want action, and to finally acknowledge the state government that they will support a business case plan for us and put the money on the table is a huge achievement to get there. After kicking off this community engagement, or the process, sorry, from 2012 with your line in the sand report, in which I will read just from the last meeting on the 30th of January this year, 2020. The line in the sand process included a broadly representative community task force supported by expert advisors from council. It canvassed 6 technology options for a mass transit system as a game changer for the Sunshine Coast. An online consultation hub launched in 2012 attracted more than 2,900 visits and 228 people that took part in a poll on the hub. The recommended proposal for light rail on the Sunshine Coast was supported by 82% of those who completed the poll. 2014 was the Sunshine Coast light rail options that was put out there. More than 700 people had their say on the light rail route options proposed for Maroochydore, Mooloolaba, Kawana and Caloundra, and the vast majority, 87%, supported Council's investigations into light rail, and their feedback contributed to the selection of route options for further study. 2018, there was a draft integrated transport strategy, and Council undertook market research and community consultation between 2017 in November to July 2018 to help shape the integrated transport strategy, which was adopted by Council in late 2018. Key findings from this market research and community consultation relevant to the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit Project strategic business case, has been integrated with the business case workings. Then finally, from the January meeting, was further comprehensive community consultation is expected to be part of the detailed business case phase, which will be led by the Queensland Government in partnership with Council, likely to occur in 2021. Now, we talk about the process moving on. Our community want movement. They want answers now. They want this project to move forward. We finally received acknowledgement from the state and federal governments that are spending huge amounts of money now out on the Bruce Highway that we need a better form of transport. And if I can continue, Mr Mayor, I'll just read a few other little notes here. With this that came in the mail, which my mother-in-law obviously rang and really was interested in regards to, Terry, what's going on? High-rises and everything coming to the Sunshine Coast. Well, it's a really knee-jerk reaction of people that don't understand what the future and what we have to meet in terms of the population growth that the state government put onto us. If that was to change from the state government, we can have a different conversation, but they are questions we need to put to our state representatives. So, first of all, the mass transit system does not require high-rise to be effective and efficient. It requires appropriate and relevant densities determined within a radius of that mass transit station, whether it's 400 metres, 800 metres or a kilometre. If you look at places in Europe like Paris and London, to name just a few, they don't have high-rises everywhere along their mass transit link systems. There are numerous places around the world that's proof that it's density, not high-rises, that is the key to an integrated transport system. The mass transit system is planned for the enterprise corridor proposed plan, after we go through a state government business case-led scenario, is where Council has for a number of years made it clear to the community that growth and the residential density that goes with it will go. At this time, in terms of, I'm yet to hear that density is high-rise from anyone. So claiming that that's going to happen from these flyers that are contributed to our residents here is people just haven't done their homework. It's like jumping at shadows. These people want to create a coast to stagnate and not move with the times, which of course would make our region less competitive and less livable. Any delay to the mass transit system results in higher car use, higher traffic volumes, more congestions and reduced productivity. Less affordable...
Councillor, do you need an extension?
Yes, please.
Councillor Cox, happy to move. Second to Councillor Dixon. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Carry on.
More congestion. Less affordable due to money needed to build wider roads, more car parks, which I'm sure you would acknowledge is a major issue. And in itself is self-defeating, as it only leads to livability spiralling down and more cost to ratepayers without a positive return, and due to more emissions, poor air quality and, importantly, a delayed mode of change transport, which people have to look at in the future, how we are going to move from A to B on the Sunshine Coast. Further impacts of a delayed mass transit system are things like the convenience and the affordable living options as the coast grows. Density, not high-rise, around mass transit system stations allows people to live in closer proximity to employment, hospitality services, medical, entertainment, beaches, etc. And it does encourage a more active style of lifestyle. So that future, what are we looking at? Most households may only have one car, not two. Using your bike to get to work, a motorcycle, or just generally walk, and increase your walking as well. So what comes out of this is improved health that goes with more of an active lifestyle. So any delay just pushes out all known and verifiable advantages that a mass transit system can provide without high rise. So the culture or the mode change is a key component of all of us living here long term on the Sunshine Coast. And just quickly, any delay is a detriment to our lifestyle. And we've got to think of our children and our children's children. We're making decisions here. This has to move forward. Sorry, not that motion, but the business case for the state government, we have to engage that as soon as possible, and people want answers. So just finishing up on that, I'd just like to say it has been proven around the world that a mass transit system requires density along the route, but it does not require high rise.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, I just have a couple of questions to start with. I guess perhaps to maybe put things in context for anyone who's tuning into this discussion at the moment, could we ask the acting CEO or the relevant council officer to just briefly describe what the preliminary business case and options analysis, what that process is and why we are looking at doing that in the future?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So the way a business case works is that you undertake, there's a three-phase approach. The first one is a strategic business case, which looks at the bigger picture, the whole of the Sunshine Coast, and gives you some guidance as to how the transport network will work. That was completed and provided out through the processes several months ago in relation to that, and it highlighted that for our particular area, the most important thing was a link between Maroochydore and Kawana, and obviously the second most important thing was a link between Kawana and the main line in relation to Biwa. It highlighted that we should go on and do further work in relation to that first stage. So a preliminary business case starts to look in more detail in relation to those provisions, particularly between Maroochydore, Kawana and Caloundra, as to what kind of a mass transport options can occur. Remember, at this stage you are just testing options and trying to determine whether they're real, whether they actually are technically able to occur, whether they can financially be afforded in relation to that in this very early stage of the process. It is significant work that's required because it's a lot of engineering technical components to it and a lot of modelling to actually run those components. That preliminary business case basically gives an indication as to whether you should progress on and do the real, more detailed study. The study that requires a lot more detail in relation to community consultation and components going forward. So it's kind of like an interim stage. You move from the strategic to the preliminary before you really make the call that it is worthwhile spending the money and doing the detailed business case. And that's where we are at the moment. We're at the final stages of the preliminary business case. We're gaining intel and information in relation to it, and obviously we're learning from some of the parties who will be responsible for either building it or funding it, being the state government or the federal government, and making sure that those agencies are providing those commentary. So it's a little bit like going through a large grant program. You kind of have a proposal, you move through the next phase, you determine whether it's reasonable before you go forward. Before any decisions are made, though, post the detailed business case, there needs to be commitment in terms of funding it, and then detailed provisions in relation to how it may roll out over a long period of time. Because these projects do not occur overnight, they'll occur over probably a 20 or 30-year time frame.
Carry on.
Just to follow on, I've got a couple of questions, Mr Mayor. I should have asked in the outset, Mr Acting CEO, what would be the cost associated to do the preliminary business case and options analysis? And has the previous community consultation to date been factored into us moving towards this next phase?
Through Mr Mayor, yeah. Every part of the process is actually informing the next part. So all of the work that was done as part of the line in the sand, the work that was done in relation to that has all been passed across and keeps informing the program going forward. The cost of a preliminary business case costs around about between $2 and $3 million in relation to it, which sounds like a lot of money, but a lot of it is actually in detailed engineering to see whether it's physically able to occur and what some of the costs associated with that physical component are, to make sure that there is a logical put forward. It's not just a pie in the sky. You think it would cost this much. At this stage, you need to know whether it's feasible in terms of dollar terms. Obviously, the next stage, the detailed business case, as mentioned previously, is a 7.5 from the state and 7.5 by ourselves to actually undertake that detailed work. And that's required to have significant community consultation, significant engineering designs, and significant localised work to actually make sure it's possible to achieve, so that if at the end of that process, if someone said, yes, it's able to be built, it actually can physically be built.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Yes, Councillor Suarez.
Just one more question, and then I'd like to hear the debate and perhaps summarise at the end. This question is to you, Councillor Natoli. Just looking at your notice of motion, I'm a little conflicted between points number 3 and points number 4. So in point number 3, you are requesting that we communicate to the Department of Transport and Main Roads that Council will only proceed with the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit detailed business case if the community engagement process identifies majority community support for the preliminary business case and options analysis. And then in the next point, point number 4, ensure that the final preliminary business case, including the outcomes, is presented to Council for final endorsement and decision prior to proceeding to phase 3. So I'm just trying to get a better understanding of what your intentions are with those 2 points.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Well, councillors, I'm happy to delete point 3, B3. If it's a concern, I'm happy to have that taken out. The only reason I had it in there is during the election campaign while I door knocked, and I door knocked this extensively. There were a lot of comments about how people felt that the council wasn't listening to them. They'd seen significant decisions made. Segasui was a classic example, and just recently we saw the decision on Twin Waters West, in particular with the planning scheme amendment, where, you know, a large proportion, 6-1 against, and yet council had supported. So the commentary to me was that they felt that, you know, council wasn't listening to the community, and they wanted to make sure that council, if recognised that there was concerns from the community, that it would be taken on board. And the other aspect in terms of ensuring the preliminary business case, if we are going to go through this consultation process, I think it's incumbent upon us to bring it back to council, understand what that means, and then make a final decision to send it on to phase 3. Before we do that, if we are going to include the community, then it's us that have to listen. We were elected by the community to listen, so that's the reason why I had it in there.
Okay, I'm up to Councillor Dixon for a question.
Well, I actually would like to move an amendment, and I did flag earlier for Councillor Natoli to potentially consider something. I put it through to meeting management. So it would be B3, and my proposed change would be communicate to the Department of Transport and Main Roads that Council will only proceed with the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit detailed business case after it has completed community engagement with relation to the prelim business case and options analysis and. So that would be my change in it. For me, Mr Mayor, just to explain, that removes in my mind the trigger that, you know, Council's only going to proceed if it gets majority support. I think do the community consultation, let DTMR know that we're going to do that. We're not going to progress with you until we've done it. And I think that flows pretty well there. I would be happy to support that change and support the motion moving forward. So it's up to the mover and the seconder.
Yeah, you need to move it as an amendment, I think.
Yep. Yep. I think we can. We can move it as an amendment to the original. Yep. Mr Mayor, just checking through you and to the CEO, is it possible if I just move that as an amendment to the original and get that accepted by the mover and seconder, or do I need to move this as a new
No,
block?
look, I would accept if the original mover and seconder are happy to make the alteration.
Okay.
Both happy? Okay, we'll stick with the same motion. I think we're up to Councillor Law. No? I thought my apologies. It is. Sorry. Because it's a notice of motion, sorry, we can't do that. My apologies. So I'm going to go back to Councillor Dixon and seconded by Councillor Winston. He did. So, Councillor Winston, you're already in the frame. Is someone else prepared to second? You're moving it. Need someone else to second because Winston was the seconder of the original motion. Councillor Hungerford.
So, councillors and through the Mayor, I think my debate's been pretty clear and hopefully we'd get the majority support. I know Councillor Winston and Natoli are on board, and I heard Councillor Suarez raise that issue in terms of streamlining and the conflict between 3 and 4. If you'd be happy to support that, I think this will get us to where Councillor Natoli was hoping to go, but without locking Council necessarily into not proceeding unless you get that majority support. Bit ambiguous for me, and as I explained earlier, how do you quantify what that is?
Thank you. Any further speakers on the amendment? Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll speak to the amendment and just say that I'm more comfortable with what's being proposed now than I was previously, because I wouldn't have supported the original notice of motion. But with this amendment that Councillor Dixon's proposed, I'm certainly supportive of this minor change.
Thank you. Councillor Suarez.
I'm also more supportive of this notice of motion with the current amendment as well. And I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Natoli's comment that in the past the community have felt that they have not been listened to, and I would agree with that. And I think the debate that we've had today has clearly demonstrated that the community have a lot more questions about this project, as well as the councillors in this room. I had a look through some of the documentation prior to this, and we have had our presentations, and my understanding is that the options analysis will consider the final 2 options, which was the light rail system as well as the rapid bus transport network. However, I am a bit concerned with the previous work that has been done with a very heavy weighting towards light rail only as the option. Indeed, as far back as 2012, the Line in the Sand project, if you have a look at the front cover of that report, it's called The Line in the Sand, the Sunshine...
Councillor, you're actually talking to the amendment,
okay,
which probably needs you to limit to that. Once the amendment becomes the motion, we can come back to more detail at that stage.
All right, I'm happy to support the amendment as it has been proposed.
Any further speakers? Councillor
Just
O'Prey.
one question for clarity, Mr Mayor, just that, so that all councillors are aware, we're only voting on the amendment now. Once the amendment's been voted on, it becomes a motion, then we make another vote on the motion. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Law.
Question to Councillor Dixon. Thank you for the amendment. Would you consider removing the word only?
Thank you, Councillor Law. Just to be frank, I'm really trying to get as many councillors as I can on board today to support Councillor Natoli, and I'm not trying to take away from what he's brought here today. I'm quite happy with it remaining in there in terms of only. I'm quite happy with it reading as it is. I think it's quite straightforward. I'm not sure if you could explain a bit further on what the benefit would be in removing that. I know we're getting quite crafty with our words, but I'm open to hearing what your argument might be.
It just is a very constricting part. So when we had the original motion for B3, the word only of being connected with if there is majority community support. So the only to me references the majority of community support, and if we're removing majority community support, which you have done, and I think that is a great enhancement, I rather think that we also should remove the only part that references majority community support.
And Mr Mayor, just a response on that. Yeah, you can really take it any which way you'd like, and I respect that view. But for me, we're saying, previously we were only going to move forward if we got the majority support. Well, for me that was a bit of a bridge too far, but I think we should only move forward if we do that genuine community consultation. And for me, that takes back originally what Councillor Joe wanted, and that was do your community consultation. That's what I campaigned on, and that's what I've said I wanted to achieve. So let's only move forward if we actually do that and honour that commitment. So I'm actually wanting to leave that in, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Winston.
Mr Mayor, I support the amendment. Putting the word only in there doesn't bring it back to what it was before. Leaving the word only there just means that we will only proceed with the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit detailed business case after we have completed it. If you take only out, it says we will only proceed. It means the same thing. We're dealing in semantics, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Everyone had enough to say? We put the amendment to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, that's Councillor Dixon, Hungerford, O'Prey, Suarez, Law, Jamieson, Natoli and Johnston. Those opposed? Councillor Cox and Councillor Landsberg. So the amendment now becomes the motion. So we're back to any further speakers? Sorry, you go first, Councillor O'Prey.
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to make some comments. I haven't spoken to it at the motion, or even asked questions, to be honest, but consult. Talk about it all the time. I think we need to do more of that. It is a bit of a timing issue for me, knowing that there hasn't been a lot of community consultation over the last 6 years. And I'm very, very happy that III has been amended. So thank you very much to Councillor Dixon for that. Mr Mayor, what I'd like to also address in my words here today is about what Councillor Rick had experienced. I made my experiences and thoughts very clear to this councillor group very early in this term about idiot comments on Facebook and online commentary. It's a bigger fool to start liking and acknowledging. And I can tell you right now, I think there's two things that a like on a Facebook page or any social media platform means. It means an acknowledgement. I like it because I understand it, I get it, yeah, I agree, that's all right. Or it's support. It means you acknowledge it, support it, and like it. And if this councillor group's going to continue down that path, it's disgusting behaviour. We need to have each other's backs all the time. The social media world's horrible out there. I mean, it's disgusting. I've got two young girls I'm trying to train, delete and block, the two favourite words. And yet here at this table, the democracy of the Sunshine Coast, we've got commentary and past commentary slagging on each other. It's not on. So, Councillor Joe, with that, I'd like to encourage you to just take that on board, mate, because it's not going to be well liked, it's not well respected. In fact, quite the contrary, I think you need to adjust what you're doing on your Facebook commentary. But with that, Mr Mayor, I will support Councillor Joe's amendment and Councillor Christian's amendment, today. I think we do need to consult more often. That's all I need to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Law.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. The most important thing is that we have good community consultation, and I'm far more comfortable with the amendment that we have achieved through Councillor Dixon, and thank you for that. I would just like to make sure that while we're talking about alternatives, and there's been a mention of using the existing main rail line north to south, looking at other things like that and increasing the urban footprint and developing in alternate areas is going to put pressure on being able to achieve no net loss of vegetation, which is part of our environmental and livability strategy. There are commitments that have been made as part of the South East Queensland plan that says that we won't be creating urban sprawl. And there's been a lot of work done since the Line in the Sand report, and one of the comments in there is that there will be informed community consultation. So I'm very pleased that we are making it very clear and very certain that we want community consultation. But while we go through that process of consultation, we're talking about public transport. We have a current challenge with our public transport in the area already, and while this program is going through, I'm not clear that we know exactly when we may be delivering on the various parts of this public transport improvement and upgrade, and what will be our population level at that point, and how will our congestion be at those times in the future. So while we're consulting, can we make sure that we're consulting with a very future view, and with a future view that responds and talks to our community strategy, that talks out to 2041, that responds to our economic development strategy that talks out to 2033, and that talks to the environmental and livability strategy that looks out to 2041. And that while we're going through the work that must be done to make the Sunshine Coast a healthy and smart place to live, that we consider the whole of what that looks like and not just one part in isolation, which then can become a little bit fearful. So please consult, and I'm very pleased that we're going to consult on this. It's so important that we get as much input from our community as we can, along with the input that we got during the recent campaign that has resulted in this council coming together in April. So I'm very pleased to see that there, and that it's there in the current form, not the previous one. But thank you to everyone involved to getting us here. But make sure we consult with a future vision and a future view, so that what happens on the Sunshine Coast is something that is meaningful in 2050, not something that is what we may want to think should be sustained from now or 20 years in the past. So thank you, and I will be supporting the motion that we have for the community consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I always appreciate the comments David, Councillor Law, makes in these matters, and I just wanted to provide a little bit of context as to where we're at in this whole process. And I just wanted to go back, because we're talking about the population of the Sunshine Coast growing from approximately 330,000 now to around 518,000 by 2041. In fact, it was actually only at the last ordinary meeting that I quoted a Courier Mail article that claimed the Sunshine Coast had the fastest growth rate in Australia for the past decade. So thankfully, our council has continually said that we're planning ahead to ensure the livability and lifestyle we enjoy today will still be available in the future. However, to achieve this, a high-quality integrated public transport solution is required to address the growing needs of our road congestion, prevent development from spreading into our green areas, as Councillor Dixon said, you know, the urbanisation or urban sprawl, support continued high levels of people being employed on the Sunshine Coast rather than travelling to Brisbane for work, and to reduce the dependency on the private motor vehicle. So, as you can see, a do-nothing approach is simply not an option. I also wanted to confirm that it's highly important for us to highlight that consultation on the broad need for improved transport connections and consolidation of our urban development has been carried out during the formation of Council's key planning documents and strategies. And councillors, these include the Regional Economic Development Strategy in 2013. One of the actions contained upon that document in the 2013 to 2018 actions identify and preserve a future public transport corridor to connect major business centres, tourism, education and population centres within the enterprise corridor. So that's clearly contained in that key regional economic development strategy. So then in the planning scheme in 2014, it's reinforced once again. The third document, the Environment and Livability Strategy in 2017, widely consulted upon. Again, it states that it is anticipated that future growth will be predominantly located in the coastal area with an emphasis on infill development, transitioning to a more consolidated urban form supported by appropriate infrastructure such as a light rail system. And then last year, we're talking about the community strategy. Once again, all of these key documents have had significant community consultation and engagement. And it's underlined in all of those documents. So it's not just in 2012 or 14 when we consulted with our community about this line in the sand. It's far greater than that. I also find it quite frustrating when I read comments in the paper, including one this morning, about Councillor Untitled giving Council a reality check over mass transit plan. I think, councillors, we've all been on this journey for a long time, well, most of us have, and I fully understand what the intent is. Claims of wall-to-wall development and high-rises in that 13-kilometre corridor, I'm sorry, is just disingenuous and misleading, and I just think the community needs to know that this is not Council's intent, and certainly no planning scheme actually supports that particular motion. Now, as I've attempted to demonstrate, population increase will be happening in the coastal corridor regardless of a mass transit solution. So to say otherwise is simply not correct. And interestingly, when I talk with my community, a large part of Division 3 falls in this coastal corridor or enterprise corridor, I'm yet to meet a resident that thinks an 8-lane Nicklin Way is a better or smarter solution than what the preliminary business case is actually considering, rapid transport or a light rail system. There's no resident out there that I'm yet to meet that thinks that that's a better solution. So I think it's incumbent upon all councillors to look at the legacy of a do-nothing approach and to actively engage all aspects of the mass transit solution and not just engage in these scare tactics, as Councillor Landsberg showed with some of the flyers that's been circulating throughout the community. And I'd also encourage, especially the new councillors, to interrogate the integrated transport strategy, to understand the consequences that our communities will be facing into the future if we don't consider what's here today in terms of the PBC. So, councillors, I also just wanted to quickly talk that...
I'll just get you an extension if you need one.
Oh, that'll do, Mr Mayor. I'm happy with that.
You're right? Okay. Councillor Winston.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support the resolution as it now stands. I had some concerns, although I did second the original motion. Look, if you go out to the public and you say to the public, would you like a better transport system on the Sunshine Coast? Of course they're going to say yes. It's a lay down misère. But if you go out to them and say to them, will you support a better transport system if it means this and this and this, you may not get the same result. You may not get the same answers. And that's all I'm saying. We need to have a bit more consultation, a bit more information for the people to make a decision. And I think that they'll come on board. Let's not have a decision in relation to providing a transport system which is fixed to a particular location that's going to increase density. We're not talking about high rise, all right? But, you know, if we're increasing density, to suggest that people will then go back to one car, well, the reality of the situation is that most of the people that live along that corridor at the present moment, or a large percentage of them, are tradies. They're not going to go down to one car. They're still going to have their two cars. We're going to treble the population in that area. So let's have a proper consultation. Let's have proper discussion about it. Let's tell the public what the options are, what the alternatives are. So far, I haven't seen anything about feed-in transport to this system, because this system that is being proposed so far is not going to work if it just goes along one corridor and doesn't have proper feed-in. And are we going to have a situation where our transport policy, or preferred one, is going to drive our future town plans, or are they going to work together? That's what we need to decide upon. And, you know, I'm just saying, let's be more transparent with the public. Let's consult a bit more. I'm not saying we shouldn't go ahead with this, right? And I don't think anybody here is saying that we should go ahead with this. And I know that there have been some emotive and, quite honestly, stupid statements that have been made by some people, you know? But it's because of ignorance in a lot of cases. And it's a reaction. And, you know, we promised, a number of us when we stood for council this time, we promised that we were going to be more open, we were going to have more consultation, etc., etc. That's all this resolution is moving. It might slow it down for 2 or 3 months, and then we can move forward, and hopefully we can take the people with us, not against us. I'm fearful that if this just goes to the state and the state finishes up dealing with it the way that they did with the cyclist situation, that they're going to come back with something which hasn't been consulted with the community, and then there's going to be hell to play when that happens. So let's get a bit more backing for our position when we take it to the state, and before we invest $7.5 million, we need to know that what we're investing in is what the community will accept. We're not spending $7.5 million of ratepayers' money on some proposal that's going to come back that doesn't reflect what the community wants. Thank you.
Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and apologies for speaking to the motion previously, breaking protocol and still understanding the process. Just to further reiterate some of the comments that Councillor Winston made and also Councillor Cox. I agree with Councillor Winston. I think everybody wants a public transport system that's usable and going to support the community, but to understand what this mass transit corridor is going to mean in terms of development. That's what's missing. Now, Councillor Cox has highlighted that it has been mentioned in a number of various documents, and that is correct. But really, when we do the community consultation, that information should go hand in hand with the information that's presented with the corridor. And I think if we do have this consultation, it's going to let the community understand what the intent of this transit system is and allay some of the fear and the misinformation that may be out in the community. So that is why I'm supporting this. I believe that the community need to understand the options for the transit system, not just light rail, the development that may be associated with it and what it will mean for them now and in the future. Thank you.
Any further speakers?
Just a question, Mr Mayor, through to potentially Mr Bunker. Is it correct that the PBC findings will be coming to Council at a special meeting next week?
Mr Mayor, we've been looking for a special meeting at the end of this month to actually bring forward a lot of this information in relation to it. We've just been working through the documentation at the moment. The main focus is understanding where we've got to and also understand the community consultation components going forward.
So further question then. So when could we expect that report to be made available?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the report is currently with myself for final sign-off before calling the meeting early next week or hopefully by middle of next week. So at this stage, we've been waiting for the report to be finalised. We've been waiting for the information to come through and obviously we'll bring it to Council as soon as we possibly can in relation to that. At this stage, we're still looking at Thursday next week for the report to come to Council.
And lastly, this report will be a publicly accessible report, I would presume.
Through Mr Mayor, yeah, we try and make sure that the main part of the report, which covers components, is a public component and make sure that that's enough to ensure that you're able to make decisions going forward.
Councillors, obviously Councillor Babarowski has taken ill and has had to leave the meeting, and I hope he's okay. But I did just want to recognise the great work that he's done as the Transport Portfolio Head for the last 8 years, and certainly he and I have worked very closely together in developing a long-term plan. Those councillors who've been on the journey for, in some cases, 10 years, in other cases 8 years, and obviously for some of our recently elected councillors only a few months. Wouldn't you like $1 for every time someone said, why don't you get the infrastructure in before you build the houses? Well, here we are at a point in time trying to do exactly that. Even though, and it's worth making the point, public transport is not the responsibility of local government. Some people would say, well, why are you in that space? Well, we're there because nobody else is doing anything about it. The people who are responsible, who are our state government representatives, do not have a plan around public transport on the Sunshine Coast. When invited to submit to our process, nothing. So you can understand why we would be fiercely determined as the representatives of our community that we're entitled to a better deal, and that requires a significant investment in public transport. Now, thus far, we've got the state government to commit to $7.5 million, of which we've got to commit $7.5 million as well, for a $15 million detailed business case. That hopefully will demonstrate not only the need, but what is the appropriate alternative. Joe, when you came to the Sunshine Coast, the Nickel and Way wouldn't have existed 50 years ago. Why didn't they think then to make it 10 lanes? Why didn't they know that the place was going to grow to what it is today? Why didn't they anticipate light rail or rail? Surely they'd seen what had happened in London. That's the challenge we've got. Not to make decisions about what's important today, but what does it look like in a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades and beyond. I note we've come under criticism from the member for Kawana, Jared Blay, in Parliament. And obviously I don't have the benefit of parliamentary privilege here, and I'm just a lowly councillor. But I put more thought into what the Sunshine Coast needs, particularly around transportation, than Mr Blay does, because he doesn't have a plan at all. He's smack bang in the middle of the Sunshine Coast, got some of the biggest investment going on in the area around there. The roads are choked. They're failing now, but no plan, nothing. So why isn't he being held to account for what he's not doing? The 13-kilometre stretch, is, the full length is actually 23 kilometres from Caloundra to Maroochydore. And no doubt over time, and I appreciate there's lots of arguments around this, over time, the right mass transit solution in place will ensure people who live in that area use their cars a lot less. In fact, it may be one of the greatest contributors to housing affordability ever, because people who live there will choose not to have a car because they'll have such a reliable means of transport within 10 metres or 600 metres, as the case might be. Now, there's not a lot Vivian Griffin and I would agree on. But to Vivian's credit, 10 years ago in the Abbott Council, she identified this as being an important measure for the Greater Sunshine Coast. That's 10 years ago. You know, we've had 10,000 people a year since then. That's another 100,000 we've ticked up to already. She did such a good job. Reportedly advised that the people in Karoi think they're getting light rail. I don't think that's the case, certainly not from our point of view. So I won't be supporting this today because we've got another mass transit meeting next Friday, and I'll be taking my direction from that meeting. I don't think we can afford to have stop-start approaches. If you want to go on my website and see what I committed about public transport and light rail prior to the election, please do. On a 2-candidate preferred basis, 57% of the population voted for me, including well over 50% in those 3 areas of 2, 3 and 4. Now, okay, I had a pretty extensive list of things I was offering up, but this is certainly one of them. So, again, councillors, you know, I've seen the splinter groups who rise up in opposition to everything. The airport, the CBD, the solar farm, Mary Cairncross, and we've seen, and it's not a time to go weak at the knees and say, hey, we've got to stop and reevaluate. You know, there's great work being done, great work being done. If we need to make adjustments, there's a process in place to do that, and that'll continue with our meeting next Thursday. So I want to finish by just saying the other thing that's really important in this game is we're elected to lead. People want us to lead. It's a very scarce commodity. It takes bravery, it takes courage to actually be sure and be confident. By all means, check back. But let's not get overtaken by splinter groups who are anti a range of things and put fear into people without any foundation whatsoever. And that's exactly what that document Terry showed us is seeking to do. Frighten people, you know, avoid the real issue. So that's why I won't be supporting this, and I'll be looking forward to a decision next week in terms of the next stages. Thank you. And on that note, I'm going to go back to Councillor Dixon to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I appreciate everybody's input today. It's good. It's great to get the balance of different views, and you can see clearly from my point of view here today that we've all got our own concerns, even with this process. And I think it's been a long journey, a new council, 5 new councillors, and I think it's important for us to just take a bit of a stop, a bit of a break, make sure that we're all on board going forward, because this is a major project, as the Mayor said. It's region shaping and changing. One thing that I said from day one, when I did my first talk here, and I think Councillor Winston actually was very eloquent when he said it, is that some of us committed to better public engagement. And for me to not support this today would mean that I'm not honouring the words that I started with when I began this term. The biggest thing in my mind right now is if we're doing nothing wrong and we've got nothing to hide, then we shouldn't fear or sway from better communication with the public. It's as simple as that. If we're doing the right thing, the strategies are right, and we've got a great plan, let's share that plan and let's get people on board. If there are small groups who aren't supportive of the plan, then I'm sure we will see that as well. But if there is a majority in support of that plan, we will see that feedback through the process. Mr Mayor, I don't want to hijack Councillor Natoli here today. This was not my creation. This was his work, his hard work with his community. I simply wanted to see this get up today to honour that community engagement, and if that meant taking that over, Councillor Natoli, I'm sorry that I've had to do that, but I think hopefully we will get the numbers that we need to at least signal to the community. Although we've got some work coming up and a future decision, there is nothing wrong with telling the Sunshine Coast community, expect better and expect public consultation from us.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Those in favour? Councillor Dixon, Councillor Hungerford, Councillor O'Prey, Councillor Suarez, Councillor Law, Councillor Johnston, Councillor Natoli. Those opposed? Councillor Cox, Councillor Landsberg, Councillor Jamieson. The motion is carried. On to item 10, petitions, item 10.1. Councillor Law, dogs off leash areas, Nambour Showgrounds.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that this petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive for report and consideration. And the petition from Sharon Bertram says to consider making the Nambour Showgrounds an off-leash dog area when there are no major events on, and or a fully fenced permanent off-leash area at Petrie Park in Nambour, which is currently only an off-leash area from 4 till 8 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Someone second the petition. Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Those in favour of receipt? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And the second petition is from Councillor Landsberg around the redevelopment of 7-Eleven at Moffat Beach. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just like to table this petition. We have 293 signatures, 34 emails, and this is in relation to the proposed 24-hour 7-Eleven service station at Moffat Beach. If anyone obviously has been through Moffat Beach any time after 8, 9 o'clock at night, very, very quiet. The possibility of increased traffic flow through this low-density area is a concern to these residents. There's many elderly residents that reside here in terms of Buccleuch Street, Knocklin, all around that area. They believe it's going to have a negative impact on also the local businesses there as well as goes against the local area, the identity, and they'd just like to lodge this with CEO on behalf. Thank you.
Again, can I have someone second, please? Councillor Winston, thank you. All those in favour of receipt? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, I think we're going to press on with the final item, which is item 11. We need to go into confidential session to discuss this item because of the contractual nature of what we're entering into. Someone prepared to move we go into confidential session, please? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Landsberg, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Are we in confidential? Okay, so we're back in open session dealing with the Sunshine Coast Investment Scheme. We have a recommendation, and we have Councillor Landsberg is to move it. Councillor O'Prey is going to second it. Is there anything you'd like to say, Councillor Landsberg?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. This initiative that Council's taken on with Country Chef is a wonderful, it sends a strong signal to our community out there.
Councillor Landsberg, you just got to be mindful of anything that was in the confidential session. You could please carry on, it's fine, but the essence of the officer recommendation, I guess, is critical.
No, I support this initiative. I think it just sends a good message out to our community to that we're open for business here on the Sunshine Coast, and come on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor O'Prey.
Mr Mayor, thank you, and through you. Firstly, what a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for our region. As I mentioned earlier, I think this is fantastic. It's exactly the space we need to be in, but full congratulations to our economic development staff, particularly Alex and your team, and Wendy. Thank you very much for all you do. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. No further speakers. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Rightio, that brings our meeting to a conclusion, and I'll declare the meeting closed at 1:33 and bid you all a good afternoon.